Okay, we have determined a quorum and call this meeting to order, and please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Swearing in of new board members. Up here, just stand up and raise your hand.
Yep, stand up. I think Steve.
Oh, wow, because you got to get sworn in.
Okay.
Stand up and raise your right hand. So, let's do the first comment. So I, and state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I, Randy Fulton,
Do solemnly swear
the
that I will support the
Constitution
Constitution
of the United States of America,
The Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon.
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon,
And the policies of Harney County School District Number 3.
and the
policies of Harney County School District Number 3.
During my term,
During my term,
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
the responsibilities of the office
the responsibilities of the office
to the best of my ability.
to the best
to
of
the
my
best of my
ability.
ability.
Thank you.
Second.
Yeah.
Confirm here, but yes, I believe so. Chair and Vice Chair.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the swearing or the board officer elections. Just confirmed that Mr. Quick, we have two offices, board chair and
Vice Chair.
vice chair. So I'm going to do board chair first. The nominations are now open for the board chairman of the Harney County School Board District Number 3.
I'll nominate Randy Fulton, board chair.
Any other nominations or second?
I'll nominate Rob Frank for board chair.
So just have, we don't have to have to have a second on nomination, just have a vote. All those in favor, I can do. I'll make sure I do this right.
That works for me, yeah.
All right, myself, Randy Fulton, has been nominated for board chair, and Mr. Rob Frank has been nominated for board chair. All those in favor of Randy Fulton, please raise your right hand
And keep them up high.
and keep them up high. Okay, 2. All those in favor of Mr. Rob Frank for board chair, raise your right hand. 3. Mr. Rob Frank has been nominated board chair. Now he takes over to do vice chair.
Probably just pass the gavel over that way.
I guess I feel like this is easy instead of moving all of our stuff.
Mr. Fulton, I think you've done a set a fine example for showing people respect during discussions and stuff. And
I appreciate that. Congratulations to you.
all right, the nominations are open for vice chair.
I'll nominate Randy Fulton.
You accept?
I do.
Are there any further nominations? Seeing none, all in favor of Mr. Fulton as vice chair, signify by raising your hand. Vice chair. The first action item, the board meeting calendar. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at that? It seems like we always talk about if that's the day that works best for everyone, that's traditionally been the day for lots of years. But if somebody did have a big conflict, we could change that. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Those are,
The day or the time you can change.
Yeah, I'm content with it. So work for me.
perfectly happy with me.
No way I would know a month in advance.
Exactly.
Disagree, that works for you as well?
Thinking right more up to Erin how she schedules games.
Oh, what's that?
I says more up to Erin how she schedules
Oh,
games.
well. It's kind of- They're all on Tuesday at 6 now. So.
I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting calendar as proposed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Fulton moved, Joe Wright seconded. All in favor of board meeting calendar 21-22, signify by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimous. All right, discussion on business, Mr. Quick.
All right, so really this meeting workshop is really intended to be fairly informal. So we have listed items on here that I believe that I'm prepared to discuss with the administration here as well. Order of how we want to discuss these is completely up to you, the board. We can start at the beginning, and if there's something that's not on here that we want to make sure we talk about, we can put that on there as well. So I would say first, is there anything else on there that today that we want to make sure we talk about that's not on there?
If we have time, I would like to address some of these mandates that we're facing.
Yeah,
Have some discussion before we go into the meeting tonight, if there's time.
You want to tackle that right off the bat, just to make sure we at least get initial, because we do have a webinar at 5:30 that we put it on during dinner to be able to listen to directly from OSBA. You'll hear from their attorney. I believe Colville will be on there as well as OHA. So
I feel like it's not the end of the world if we have to discuss that during the meeting in open session, but a lot of these other topics, this more roundtable setting with the other administrators, I'd like to get the most out of that, and what everyone else thinks, but.
yeah, I'd like to touch on the mandates a little bit before, but the majority, I think, would be this long-term stuff.
I just dropped it on the very end there. Definitely tonight. I'll talk about math. Every board meeting last week and this week, for other superintendents I've talked to, get a lot of people at the meetings discussing math. So I'm hoping the OSBA webinar kind of clarifies a lot of things for board meetings in addition to what I've already said. So let's just start off with strategic plan first. That way. So the strategic plan was developed several years ago with a consultant. We met with multiple groups within the community. We helped us kind of pull together ideas for the goals. They really pull all those ideas and say what made the most sense. The board at the time, which not one of you were on that board at the time, so it's like it's all kind of new. They focused on 3 main goals. Their first goal is listed on page 9, where it says by June 2023, all students K through 12 will be on track to graduate and be prepared with a plan beyond high school. Each year we kind of go into a little bit further, so we're giving kids our goals to get even down through kindergarten, kids knowing how they're doing in school, setting goals, doing some career exploration, as well as having a plan for after high school. We're well on track to meeting that goal. I think we can move forward with that. The second goal was optimize and build district facilities for students and expanding programs. As you know, we ran a bond a year ago in May that didn't pass. I guess it was in November. We ran it twice. Didn't pass. Again, that was something that came out in all the community groups that we met with. The facilities needed some attention. We had to figure out something to do with them, which is why I saw on the agenda today to talk about it. See, what does this board want to do? Yeah, those are the 2 main goals. And so I guess I'd like to just kind of hear your thoughts about the strategic plan in general. I would be totally open to re-looking at it, revisiting the community groups, people getting new input and to see. Is it time for revision? Have things changed enough to create new goals? And I would just kind of open it up to discussion with you guys. What are your thoughts?
We still have a site council.
Site council.
Site councils, remember there was legislation like 91, forever they had them. I don't think that statute ever went away, but they just kind of faded away.
Yeah, I think it's in our collective bargaining agreement that says we have a site council, but we haven't really held true to like, here's the 21st century. I think it's 21st century site council. So I don't think that's an active group. And each group has councils, but it's not necessarily that 21st century site council.
We'll be in the process of the high school putting back a site council this year, but in the last 2 years, it's been extremely difficult. We put it out there, talked to teachers about it, and it's been extremely difficult to try to get people to be involved in it, simply because of the math and building and getting people in there. We did have one my first year here, about halfway through the second year until the COVID situation hit. So we'll have we will attempt to have an active one at the high school, depending on if we get people that want to volunteer and be part of that.
I think it's funny to have a leadership team, right? Or do you have a site council?
No, we had the parent committee that we started, many of us in this room, and we had no community or parent involvement, so it just kind of absorbed itself.
What's the main purpose?
Of the site council?
I only asked about the site council because I feel like these two goals are good general goals for the district, especially when I think about graduation requirements and some of the recent things that have happened in graduation requirements. We've talked about maybe having an advisory committee to the board of community members, teachers, and staff members, which pretty much aligns with what a site council is. That's why I didn't know if we had one. But the other thing is, if each individual school has a hard time pulling enough people, maybe this group can come up with a plan, and maybe we call it a site council. We can call it whatever we want, it doesn't matter. But if all the schools put in together, because I think that guidance is going to be really important. How are we graduating kids with no essential skills? I think that's a horrible idea. I'm not saying that we are. I'm saying according to the suspended essential skills requirement, the removal of personal finance as graduation requirement. I think we need a group to make sure we're representing the needs of our community to look at some of those requirements.
I can just tell you right out of the collective bargaining agreement for the teachers, it quotes the ORS. It just says the district and association agree to establish a process for involving professional educators in enhancing the quality and effectiveness of education for the purpose of improving student knowledge, skills, and attitudes.
So it's more like a teacher committee, is that's how I took that, is that not right? All right.
One of the things I was looking at today to see if that was even still a statute, talked about community members on there. A lot of site councils had student representation, classified staff was represented, parents that had kids in the schools were represented. It was pretty inclusive.
So do you think that the purpose of that would be to, assess the current goals and revise, or just to get a constant pulse of the community? What do you think the main goal of that would be? I mean, I see some value in it for sure, but I'd like to kind of understand what it would look like and entail.
I think as in an advisory capacity to the board, and I think if we choose these two goals are good, but maybe the indicators and method of measurement could use a little tweaking. And I don't know if you've looked at some of the core curriculum revisions, especially with social sciences, but I really think, not only because it's the right thing to do for our community, but to avoid an uproar, it would be good to have some community buy-in to go through those. And it is our school district, not the state. So if our community says, as a representative group of the advisory committee and the board signs off on it and agrees that this is what we would like for our curriculum or our diploma requirements, that'd be better than just the board saying, we're gonna keep testing for essential skills and require personal finance or something.
What are your thoughts, Steve? Are you open to that, or do you see?
I mean, I don't think it ever hurts to get a committee together that's willing to really take a dive into how we do business. If you were gonna look specifically at the social studies curriculum, you may want to get people that are interested just in that particular thing. If that's, I mean, I know that I've seen a Facebook post out there that people are concerned about CRT being within our curriculum. If that's something the board wants to create a committee to kind of take a relook at it and say, hey, exactly what's in there and how is that affected and how are we teaching our curriculum? That would be, to me, that would be the best method of getting people together, look at it, and then maybe report back to the board and say, here's what our findings are.
I like that idea. Teachers as well as maybe some concerned parents that are informed that and it could be a committee of just part of the board or as well, like a member from the board. Is that what it would look like?
I think it'd be good to have representation on that.
Yeah.
I do think as a board, you have the ability to have working committees for the board to report back. We have a policy about board committees. Since special committees may be appointed by the board for specific purposes to serve until their assignment is completed, the entire board may meet as a committee of the whole. It really says the function of special committees will be fact-finding, deliberative, and advisory rather than legislative or administrative. So if you have the ability to put out there and recruit some people to be on a committee about social studies specifically, that's really the area we want to focus on with that.
I think the essential skill question is going to iron itself out within a year. I think that right now, if we were to get into a situation where we wanted to require essential skills for this graduating class going into this year, we'd be running into some serious roadblocks. And I think the issue would be the fact that as of last year, they weren't going to require it. So we had a ton of kids opt out of state testing. So they opted out of the ability to show their essential skills. So now to bring it back for this year, now they obviously can still do that through work samples but I think that would be an interesting committee to be on. If we were to say we wanted to hold kids to essential skills this year. I'm saying I'm against it, obviously essential skills are extremely important. I'm just saying that with what the state is saying about what is needed to graduate, and you talked about the personal finance, obviously the state tells you what you have to graduate, then we can add to that. And we could add personal finance, or we could say that our social studies or our science, you got to get 3 years of science, but one of those has to be physics. And you certainly as a board tell them, we could set that up. But I think the essential skill thing is going to get cleaned up after this year. I think from my understanding, from what I've talked to a friend of mine at the ODE, I think that's going to come back. I think that's going to be solid. I think putting it in place this year would run into a lot of roadblocks.
Well, especially for how many parents opted their kids out. I mean, I only ended up testing 11 total kids out of that junior class. And so there might be 11 parents that might say, yeah, let's do it. But the majority is going to say.
Now, one of the things too, though, is, there are schools out there that don't do state testing. Let me take that back. There are no schools out there that don't do state testing. There are some schools out there that the whole class opts out of it. Summit was a great example. Every junior opted out of state testing. And in return, the school did the ACT. So you have the ability to do any other kind of testing we wanted to do. We could say, hey, and as for us, we have put money into our Major 98 plan for the following year to pay for advanced classes and to pay for SATs and ACTs. So at some point, but the thing about it, you have to be careful about this because we cannot come in and say, we as a school are going to do the ACT instead of SBAC. We could come in as a school and say, we're going to offer the ACT, and then people can opt out of the SBAC as a family, as a student, and as a parent. But we can't say we're going to do this instead of this. We have to offer SBAC. And then students and parents can decide that they don't want to do it because they're going to take ACT, because the ACT, SAT, all those can show essential skills too. You score a certain score in there, you get your essential skills. So it's not like we don't do state testing, they're going to have to do work samples. That's not true. You can get your scores in other test areas. So, and obviously for them, when I talked to the guy at Summit, he simply said, well, for us, it was more usable. We have all these kids taking ACT where, a pretty highly academic school, a lot of those kids are going to take ACT anyway, when it comes to college placement. Then they use that for their essential skills. So, I mean, that's something to think about. if we want to offer that, but again, we won't, I mean, just to be clear, we won't offer it in place of SBAC. We'll offer it and then people can choose that, I guess.
I don't want our students to graduate without essential skills. And I air quote that because I don't mean the test, I mean literally not being able to read and write and math. I don't know what the essential skills evaluate or assessment looks like. So maybe this committee could look at that and see, is there something more fitting to make sure that our students, when they have our stamp of approval leading with that diploma, that it actually means something, because I feel like they.
And it's, you know, the thing about it, obviously you have your state testing, and if you score a certain score on the math, the reading, writing, that shows that you have passed your essential skills. If you don't, then somewhere between the time that you took the test and the time that, or your senior year, you're gonna have to do a work sample, actually 2 work samples. And then that's graded by a teacher. And they have to score a certain score on each one of those, and then those work samples can show that they've done those essential skills. But again, I think going back to what you're saying, Rob, just because a kid passes a work sample one time doesn't mean their essential skills are that strong. You know, they could, I mean, students can do well one day on a math. I mean, doesn't mean that they're necessarily at the level we want them to be at. And there's no really telltale to be able to tell what level they're at other than those tools. But we can certainly, you know, I can send to you guys the rubrics and everything we use for work samples. I can send you I've got the SBAC, I can send you the SBAC scores they need, the ACT score. I can send all that to all you if you want to see it.
I don't understand all this for sure. I think maybe kind of what I'm troubled with the definition of essential skills, actually, as far as the state is concerned. Like you're saying, reading, writing, and math, that's all fine and dandy. I've hired young kids recently at my workplace who can do that stuff, but are not functioning parts of society as far as actually working, as far as contributing. And so I think maybe I'm wrong, that's not what Rob meant. I'm a little troubled by the definition of essential skills and who comes up with that definition.
Oh. I get it. I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I have a Harney County graduate right now that can't read a tape measure, which in my simple mind, that is more of an essential skill. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you know, and that's one of the reasons that in our board report, we added back an adulting class where we're bringing back cooking, and we're gonna do some minor house repair, minor car repair, because I would think that everybody in here would think that, you know, changing a tire or cooking top ramen is an essential skill.
Yeah.
You know, being able to cook something on the stove. But you know, not all kids can do that. So based on what the state requires as essential skills and what we think really are the skills that they use when they get into real life, sure, they definitely look a bit different.
I don't want to wait for the state to tell us what the requirements will be, and maybe it'll iron itself out in a year. I'd rather be proactive and have our district decide, this is what our educated experts think is reasonable, and this is what our parents and community have for expectations for their kids, and this is where it meets. And I would love to hear what a group of educators and administrators and parents would come up with, and maybe we would have optional ACT or some totally different evaluation and make it reasonable so that the bar is not set so high that realistic kids can't reach it.
Well, I can also say that we haven't, and again, I say we, you know, this is only my 4th year, although it's weird that I'm already in year 4. You know, in my first 3 years, we haven't had any students not graduate because of a lacking of essential skills. We had a student not graduate the first year when Megan was maybe because of credit deficiency. But we have not had any student not walk across the stage based on the fact of getting their essential skills, based on what the state says essential skills is. Like Mr. Rice says, based on what they're qualifying as essential skills. But again, that doesn't mean when they walk across the stage, walk out the door, that we're 100% comfortable that they're ready to go.
Well, I think too, like, you know, the high school does a great job offering like their work studies where kids can go out and get a practice job for a period of day. And again, I think that coming from Monroe, which is very different, but you know, all of the youth up there do work ethic training. Like they learn what hard work is and what do you do when you have a disagreement with your coworker. You don't spat off at them, or you don't like what your boss told you, or how you dress to go to work, and all of those types of things.
Yeah, does the work study still thing go on? Because at my work, we had a student a few years ago, but then we kind of quit accepting students because it was actually kind of a pain. We kept getting phone calls to see if the kid was really there. And we became like the principal or vice principal also for this kid that just became, and he was actually there all the time. I don't know where the miscommunication was, but it turned into more trouble than it was worth for the business.
Well, I think one of the things that happened, Mr. Wright, is that we did have, I would say this about being negative, I'm not a negative person, but we did have some businesses, or we did have some situations where kids maybe weren't in their full hours that were, that were being documented. And again, I'm not blaming, I don't run a business. My dad ran a business for years. He was owned his own business. So I know that, he wouldn't have had time to check and see if the kid showed up at the exact time he was supposed to be, and the kid brought time, my dad's doing this and saying go. So I'm not blaming anybody. But I think it got to a point where we looked at different programs around the state and said, okay, how do we, not necessarily, because you're right, if we put 30 kids out in work studies, 25 of them are probably gonna knock it out of the park. And probably you people as business owners don't have to have one concern about it. But there might be 3 or 4 that we really think it's a good setting for them, but it's gonna take a little bit more, eyes on and things like that. So our teacher at the time was like, okay, I wanna be able to get out or make phone calls and kind of find it. So I get what you're saying. We've transitioned a little bit, and Aaron can help me out of this, so I missed this, screw this up, please. We've transitioned a little bit away from school to work, although we still have it, to our Harney County partnership, High Desert, to where we're looking at a lot more internships than work studies. Meaning where, and they might be in some of them, might be in settings where they're not getting paid, but they're getting into an internship where really, because there really is a difference. I mean, if you go, a school to work situation can be where somebody just decides they just want 5th period, they're gonna go over and they're gonna work at McDonald's, and they're gonna get their hours in, and then we're gonna give them a credit because they're working and they're making money. It's a little bit of a different situation. An internship is, hey, when I get out of high school here in a couple of years, I want to go into mechanics, or I want to go into these things. So I get into an internship, which is different, and that's being taken on business roads.
Yeah.
That actually makes more sense.
Absolutely.
Our business would be more suited for like an internship.
Sure. Somebody really wants to be in that setting.
The student we had would actually work till 3:30 on his school or work or whatever, and then he would clock in and work from 3:30 to 5 paid when we were doing participating.
Sure. And it's easier for us when it's an actually internship situation. It's easier for us to do multiple periods. If we don't have to have a kid go multiple periods throughout school to work, and it's not really something they're interested in, they want to make money, it's like, that's not really what we're set up for. But if kids doing an internship, with our classes being 57 minutes or whatever, it's much easier for us as a high school to say, hey, that student's going to be taking 3 periods of internship in the afternoon as a senior. They don't need the credit, so they're getting the alternative, the elective credit, and they're going to be from 12 to 3:30, they're going to be doing an internship that hopefully within 12 months they're in college studying. So it helps us be able to say, hey, we can extend the period of time that they're actually with a business.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit more rigorous now too, and so it has more to it. So they're creating cover letters, resumes, doing interviews, having a bit more, like a more typical essential skills sort of class to it, which has been nice. And then we do have our schoolwork, like Mr. Memphis said, for those kids that are just like, no, I'm just gonna go here for this time.
For like my businesses, I agree with the internship, and I think the internship's amazing because I do believe an internship can also turn into a trade school. It doesn't necessarily have to be a college situation. But for my businesses, the actual job, going to the job and working at the job, because I feel in my business, everybody should work customer service. It's definitely, it really kind of goes in hand with life skill. So not eliminating the kids being able to go out and work during a couple periods, whether it be paid or unpaid. I think it needs to be paid, because if you're going to ask them to come and work at your business, they need to be paid, because that's the ultimate end result. But I do believe that that's not something that needs to go. I've had, I think, 1 or 2 since we've had the Pine Room, and it worked out fine for me. I don't know if we just had incredibly capable students or what, but it did actually work, and it was actually fine. But I do think that I'm not seeing anybody, once they're in there, they're not crazy enough to want to be an intern to learn how to be a restaurant owner, but maybe they do. There's many aspects inside that, but I guess what I'm saying is customer service and getting somebody out there into that is a little bit different than Joe's, but the business that there is businesses such as McDonald's or whatever that whether you want that to be your life career or not, there's many skills that they can learn.
Sure, and we'd love to see all those people in internships actually go through interviews. You know, instead of just getting an internship, actually, maybe
Yes,
it's a technicality, maybe, you know, tell them, maybe you're gonna have the internship, but you're gonna do an interview of what an interview with this company would look like with the restaurant, with equipment, I mean, whatever it may be, so they actually get the full gamut of not just working there, but what to expect when they go to interview for somebody in that position.
you can't just walk into the building and say, do you have job openings? And truly,
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
they truly expect, I mean, it's really kind of scary, actually. They come with nothing and they truly, when you start shooting questions back, blank.
You
I
gotta make sure
mean-
you're in your slippers and your pajama pants.
I mean, blank. I mean, that's, it's kind of scary because they don't come with, you know, and I don't require a detailed resume. We're just not that establishment. It's not, but I do require a name and a phone number, but a lot of them, and I'm not just saying our kids, just in general, walk into a building and do not think to bring anything with their information on it. They just want to know if you're hiring. And from that point, I almost sometimes want to go, so what do you expect to happen right now? And no disrespect, just, so now what do you don't have anything for me, but what do you expect? So them not having the skills to do a job interview, it's really scary to me. I really feel my kids were in the senior project stage, and I know that that's a controversy, but senior project for my 3 kids were fabulous. It was fabulous. So
I personally think that these 2 goals would be just fine. I mean, we've got them, that's cool. I would like to see a site council-esque kind of a committee to go over the indicators and the method of measurement. Is that something that the board thinks is reasonable? And I just finally found it, but the site council, the reason I say esque is because you need to have a certified representative, classified representative, but according to that OAR, they have to be elected. And so to get rid of some of the formalities, we're not required to have them. Just to make sure those groups are represented, have one of those. Teachers can't outnumber parents was another one of the criteria, which I think is a good one. I would like to see a committee like that look at this and also advise on other things as well, but anyone have strong feelings on these?
No, I think it's actually very similar to the meeting Steve had to make this.
Yeah.
Actually, I was in attendance in a couple of those. It's actually very similar to what took place for that. It was maybe something on a way bigger scale, a lot of people. But no, I agree. I don't see any harm in it.
So if we're gonna follow that kind of a guideline to put together a committee, kind of a site council-esque committee, what are reasonable expectations in terms of how often they meet and what is expected of them? Because I mean, as I know,
My thing is, what's the focus, what's the purpose, how broad can you get, what's the end goal? And I love the idea, I like collaboration, and that way it helps with communication and just everything, community, and overall it's a great concept, but I'd like to understand what you want to get out of it, or what we want to get out of it, rather than just this open blanket thing where you can discuss anything. And, so if it's curriculum, it's one thing. If it's, your graduation requirements, like really focus on what we want to get out of it before I say, yeah, that's an awesome idea.
To the point of curriculum, when it comes up, our adoption years come up, all of us, the administrators are all involvement teachers. If you have been chosen to or volunteered to also look at curriculum as well. So those teachers do get together when it is an adoption year. We do look at the curriculum and see, and then we take the state standards as kind of a measure. And then we use that as a guide to see if the curriculum that we have meets the criteria, meets the standards that are put forth. So we've done that. So we do that with curriculum already.
And there's a rating scale that all the
Right.
teachers use to look at. It was we did that with the social studies and what's the college in Monmouth, Western Oregon?
Western.
It was nice enough they housed it, so I was able to bring all of the curriculum back, which was really interesting. But it was a pretty interesting, I've never done it in this role. I've been a teacher on a committee, but it was pretty interesting seeing our teachers go through it, because they definitely had, gee, I've used this company before, they are horrible, their books are not cohesive, and it was a pretty interesting process. And happy to share as much of that process as you would like. And so I think that it would be helpful to, and we put it out to community members if they want to come up and look. I did that this year with having, if you want to look at any of it, because it's pretty interesting, the vast variety of things that the state adopts. And you have the little companies with good books, and you have the big companies with 54 resources for you. And so it's a pretty interesting, it was a good process, but it was hard to get, we had a few people who would email questions or things like that, but there wasn't a huge response, and I don't know if that's typical. Again, I haven't ever done it from this side of the table, but I don't know how to get more people involved other than, again, putting it out there, inviting people. It'd be important, I think, with the site council idea to get people from various high school age kids. I think it'd be important too to get parents who have kids who went on to college. Were they ready? What were they ready for? And getting kids who are coming up, what do you want for your child, and getting the tribe. And everyone has a little bit different view based on their cultural background and their family background and their generational background. And I think they're all very different, and how you get there is very different. And so I think it'd be really neat if we could get all of those lenses at one table.
And one of the things that site council administrative rule allowed for is that other representatives can be selected by the council itself. And I would like to see this committee have the flexibility that, let's say, for example, just a jumping off point, maybe they're going to meet 3 times a school year, not be during the summer because everyone's busy, just 3 times during the school year. Maybe the first meeting, if we're going to have them look at the graduation requirements and will best fit our school district. Maybe the teachers pick a specific teacher because they are the most well-versed in that, or a couple of teachers. And there's a certain administrator that goes because they're well-versed in that. Maybe you select parents because you're going to talk about college readiness, parents that have experience with that. You wouldn't have to select the same people each time. And that's why I say by not being specifically a site council, you wouldn't have to have the same elected representative every time. Maybe the teachers would get together and say, man, this time, we're talking about these social studies standards and we need to have this teacher represent us. That's my thought. And I think that we could give them goals. Dan asked about that. So it's not just floating out there, they do whatever. We need to have goals set ahead of them. But that would be the first thing I would think, maybe even for this year, is to go over that goal 1. Goal 2, what do you think about that?
That's a hard one. I mean, we've already in a weird time, and we put this off. We've got a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed, and we can go status quo until we feel like the time is right to put up another bond or something. But I don't know.
Oddly enough, on that note, a whole bunch of people I talked to the last time around, the issue was not of it being too much. It was actually a huge issue of it not being enough. Like, people thought, you're not even going to complete everything that really needs to be done, so why would I vote yes? I actually got that feedback a lot when we're discussing with other people. And I was actually on that side. And so that's something, before you even do anything like that, also another goal for this committee you could have is to actually get some community input. Because I was shocked sometimes that people would input to me that it was not enough. Not that it was too much, but it was not going to do everything. So what's the point?
By do everything, what do you think they were insinuating?
Well,
New facility or-
I'm actually, I think this is very controversial, but I went to them and I had good experiences with them. I'm okay with a K-12 facility in a general same facility. I'm not scared by those kind of schools at all, and the majority of people that I talked with felt the same way. Like completely new.
I'm sure times changed. We had one of those several years ago where we're gonna build around the property, K-12. It went down.
Yeah.
Handled it, but like I say, times change.
And, it depends obviously on the local economy at the time and all of that. Yeah. And, if you're right, the same year that they close the mill or something, and you try to get a school bond, nobody's voting yes for that.
Well, I think the one thing under goal 2 is we could totally talk about the Lincoln building. We have vacated. I think that was part of, is that gonna be part of the work session, or part of the actual board meeting?
You know, it's part of the work session as well.
On what to do with it, and I think we all pretty much agreed it was time to get out, and we did. And then we're moving into the new district offices within a month, I would think. And it might be time to decide when we can make an actual decision on what we're actually gonna do with that facility, with that piece of property. I know we'd like to, personally, I would like to see it sold, and any assets that we get out of that, any financial assets used to, number one, replace the one thing that everybody's worried about losing up there at that building, is the gymnasium. Replacing that somewhere with maybe a new facility in this area or something. And then if there's proceeds beyond that cost, possibly building a district office down at the facility down on West Pierce. That's just my personal thought. There's a lot, we have a lot of property down there. It's called the bus facility, I think.
Yeah.
The district office could be, and, you know, we started the legwork on just getting ideas on a modular type building, what it would cost to get one ordered the way we want it. And now we got a 5-year lease. So we got 5 years to work that out. So that's just my thoughts, is we might have to, again, a regular board meeting, make a decision if we're gonna, we don't have it listed for sale yet technically. No.
It's an action item.
Yeah, okay. If it's an action item, then I've said enough and we can move on.
So within this, would you want to resurrect a strategic plan committee that involves multiple people to specifically kind of revise this document and around those two goals, looking at the sub goals?
So I was just trying to wrap this around. I like the idea. I love the collaboration. I like the, you know, those goals are fine. You know, if we had, you know, even two, I guess you know, the term the site council could be this broad overseeing thing, and then you develop committees off of that meet periodically. One committee could be based on graduation and finance. One could be you know, site facility decisions and things like that. I like that idea because it's hard to get input from all the players with the amount of time that we have to meet once a month, you know. So I think we need to do something different than what's been going on the last, since I've been in that regard, if we want to get collaboration in some of those decisions. So.
There was a little bit of discussion, maybe at the last meeting, of some curriculum stuff that might be coming down the pipe. Kind of had the thought, maybe someone's talked about an advisory type committee or something to get more input. I've been thinking a lot about that, and then as soon as we start talking about the strategic plan and open season goals, I thought that would be a very fitting job for such a committee to address those indicators. I don't know that it needs to be a full-blown strategic plan committee, and I don't think that this would be their only charge, but I think that's what they could start with, is looking at those indicators for the graduation.
So how would that look? I mean, how would you go about recruiting?
Can we decide right now that, you know, what that might look like? Is it, okay, it's, you know, X amount of teachers, administrator, a board member representative, and so many people from the community.
You can kind of look on page 3 what we had before. The type of people represented. You have parents, you have teachers, you have faculty members, you have board members. Who would we need to add to that list? Or is that list kind of?
Nice to see maybe a few more parents than one.
I can say we tried.
Yeah, no, I
You're asking
understand.
people for a big commitment.
Even I only attended one meeting for this, so I'm not any, I'm just as guilty as everybody else.
Well, it's almost, you know, something like this, but rather after the development of the plan, it's just like, good luck, you know, board and superintendent, make it happen. This is more, you know, what can we do to tweak things and what can we do to support and things like that. So kind of more of an ongoing support rather than just develop and dump.
You talk about when you would meet, I suggest only meet once a month with this group, because we all know that if you meet more than once a month, people are not going to be involved.
That's what I was thinking.
And you do it the week before the board meeting.
He was saying
Once a
3
quarter.
times a year.
You do it, yeah, but you always do it the week before a board meeting, so they can present to the board the next week, and something like that, so.
I'm just wondering this, what would be the end goal for the board to, like, by a certain date, you want to make sure these indicators are updated, so that committee has a specific charge, like, we need to end something.
Yeah, maybe that after the first fall meeting, they have new indicators to meet goals. That's what we want them to do, brainstorm those.
New recommendations that the board can approve.
To help achieve goal.
Yeah.
Yep, recommendations.
So to update the indicators. Is that something that you want to, maybe suggest names of people that you know that we should contact? You want myself and administration to seek out those parents? You've got ideas for contact people.
So if it has to do with, are you talking graduation would be the primary thing, graduation requirements? Is that the main thing? So if that's it, then would we focus mainly on the high school or have?
I think you would still want to include maybe even 8th grade and maybe 7th grade parents also.
But even,
you're preparing
well,
them.
even from the teachers and administrators, you know, like what group of people would you want representing the school, and then from there, tying the parents.
I mean, in my opinion, ideally, you get at least one teacher from every school, just so they're there, they know what's going on. You need to have somebody feel like they're just being told that, you know, one school's like, wait, how come we have no input on this?
Well, and it starts, I mean, it truly, I taught 5th grade, well, I guess all three of us did, taught 5th grade, and I mean, that is the turning point of, if you're not on target trajectory, right, wise, you're gonna have a really hard time getting there. What we do at the high school needs to be passed to the middle school. I mean, it's kind of a backwards waterfall.
Well, and it's nice, like even me, for example, I have a kid in every school. And so it's nice, like you said, you know, low parent involvement. I'm much more apt, and I know some friends that have kids in multiple schools that would be much more apt to join a committee like this, because it's going to ultimately affect all of their children. So maybe if we can find some parents that have, you know, kids in multiple schools, maybe even all three, that's, you know, consistency.
What we do is like a school, I know, like the 5th graders, and like, especially with the core subjects that we do also for, when you're talking about essential skills and making sure kids are prepared for life after high school, the one thing that we do is we get together with the teachers, like, and then kind of map out our curriculum from, usually it's from 5th grade on through high school, just make sure that we're all on track, that we're all supporting each other, and then we look at your test scores, we look at your look at each other's test scores, you know, and look for areas of growth and deficiencies, and what can we do to support each other. So there's lots of collaboration that goes on between the schools, I think, that a lot of people aren't aware of. So just putting that out there too.
I think the idea of having each school represented, everybody wants to be represented, but if you have too many people on the committee can't function nimbly because there's just too much baggage. I like the idea of being flexible, so if it was only 3 times a year, we said this first meeting, this is what you need to accomplish. You need a classified person there, a certified person. The certified teachers could say, this is who needs to be there. You need to get to that meeting. It doesn't have to be the same person every time. But I feel like if you have 3 teachers and 1 administrator, maybe a superintendent, now we have 5 people from the school, plus a classified, that's 6. And I think it is important, as was illustrated in the site council plans, but it makes community members feel like they're not outnumbered on a committee, that they actually have a say if there are at least as many community members. Well, now you have 5 or 6 community members too, and you have 12 or 15 people in a room. I keep it to 11 people or less.
So with that, you know, I think the hardest work is, I don't know, the responsibility is on the principal at the high school to make it happen at the end, right? So they have to make up whatever gap happened before. So I think representation from the high school might be weighed a little bit higher. So administrator, you know, a couple of teachers there, at least a teacher from middle school and elementary school, then whether they need an administrator from those schools as well. You know, it's going to be, and then classify, that's going to be hard to do. So to keep it 11, but you're right, bigger than that is,
It'd be wiser to say, you need to at least have these interests represented. You need to at least have even community and teacher
for sure.
and let them, because maybe for some reason, the committee thinks, you know, we need 20 people at this meeting.
Yeah.
And if that's what they think they need, then it's fair.
Alright.
Would you be okay if I contacted Jerry Colon, the one that helped us with this one as a consultant, to come in and kind of advise us, which you might be able to,
Yeah. Is there a big cost associated with that?
if you're just doing an update like that, it's not gonna be huge.
I think it's worth it. I like when a consultant comes in.
He's one that's done multiple strategic plans. He's a retired superintendent. I think that's all he does now. Well, he's on the state board of education too, but he's retired. He just works with districts to help them move forward with goals. So he'd be a good one.
I like that idea.
I think he would enjoy coming back up and see where we've been and how we can move forward again.
You could start.
One thing I would say about that, I've had experiences in the past when a consultant comes in and that's what they do. But they sometimes, kind of like the essential skills, that term essential skills can mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. If our community or our board is wanting this committee for a certain reason and we aren't good enough at articulating it, he drives them in a different direction. And a lot of times, especially when you get community members, they aren't really sure how to speak up and say, well, I thought we were supposed to be talking about this or that, because they are told this is what you're developing, and so that's what they develop. And so
We'd have to be careful about
He's the
that.
one that he'll tailor it to you and your needs. I mean, he's dealt with giant districts to do plans and they've, got these giant binders. He's done ones like this where we specifically asked them, we only want a couple goals. We want to make it fairly simple. And he worked with this and said, that's what you want, that's what you'll get. So.
And I think working in that plan, I think he was really great at kind of guiding it to be thinking. He didn't really necessarily guide us in one way. He really let us do our thing and just kind of helped to kind of facilitate and get the verbiage down for the goal and how it should be written and how we can condense certain things to make it a little more concise. So.
And you did a really good job of focusing everybody, getting everybody to move along, because if you're concerned about too many people being on the committee, you did a really good job of just kind of moving the process along.
He wasn't afraid to push.
Yeah. He was not afraid to push, that was good.
I should have just asked what you guys think. That's what I meant.
Yeah, Jerry's a good experience.
Jerry's one of those, I think he's probably one of the most well-respected, retired superintendents in the state. He's across the board, you won't hear any bad word about Jerry.
Like the meeting I was at, I don't remember him speaking, which is probably, that's probably a good indicator that it's good, because if you remember a whole bunch of input from him on your own local school district, that would be a bad sign when he's not from here. But I don't remember hearing a lot of input from him, so.
I hope he's still doing it. I'm pretty sure he's still. Yeah, I think he'd be interested. He's from, I think he lives in Bend.
So the objective of this whole thing is to make sure that, the strategic plan gets implemented well, and that we have kind of this living entity that can tweak it a little bit to make it happen. That's not just the board and the superintendent, that's more collaborative. So if we stick to that, unless there's anything else you think that would be an objective out of that.
I was thinking more broad advisory than just a strategic plan, but really those two goals pretty much encompass it all. So yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So that's
I think by implementing it, it will also help, when they got later here, the SIA plan, it will help us, because we really do need to get input from our community on a regular basis. And some of that input may not have anything to do with these particular things, but it will help guide us in revising and changing our vision for SIA going forward. It might help us do two things at once.
Is there a board member that would like to be involved with that?
I'd love to.
Maybe let's see when we decide when the first meeting is, we'll make sure somebody's there. Is there anything else, Mr. Quick, you need for the plan? Is that about clear as mud, kind of a committee that's
I
kind of
think
like?
that's helpful. I think it's good direction. I think especially getting Jerry involved, you know, helps guide us, but it's a good spot.
I actually think this quote on page 6, in the middle of the page, actually kind of indicates, I think what we're all trying to, still trying to achieve.
Was the tag wheel came up with that thing, but-
Mission statement.
I think that's something a lot of parents and community members would be excited about. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. I think it's worth even bringing up at the meeting tonight that we talk about. Or something like that. I think it would be worth.
They can email you, us, if anyone's interested. They're volunteers, so more than likely come then. You know what I mean?
Should we do that tonight? Tell people to email if they're interested in participating with the committee, or is the committee too?
Do you have enough information to tell exactly what the committee's gonna do?
That's.
I mean, are you prepared to invite people to something that we're not 100% sure exactly what I don't know.
I'd rather define it a little bit better. Right, so it's not embarrassing at some point.
We're gonna update the strategic plan. That's kind of a general.
Well, that could be it.
I think that would be good enough if people are interested. I could say it was hard to recruit people. So if you've got people that are jumping up and down to be involved, come on in.
You, I mean, basically, it says committee to review and revise the strategic plan.
Yeah.
Give guidance to what you're looking for in volunteers.
We got a good group of people, better time to advertise.
Is it too ambitious to ask that their first meeting by, say, December?
No, I'd like to get us even sooner than that. Yeah. If we
How many more we got a board meeting in September, maybe have a meeting in October?
Anything else on the strategic plan? Student investment account.
Here with you, first a document, I'll pass it around, that shows the allowable, some of it, not all, it's not all inclusive list, but allowable expenses with the student investment account. Again, this is one where we surveyed our parents, we surveyed the community, we surveyed teachers. And we tried to say, hey, how are we gonna use this new money from the state to best meet our kids? The number one thing that came out of there was the social and emotional piece that felt like just community. And that's where we really came out. The heavy emphasis on hiring a couple counselors. This year we realized that goal, we had 2 online, so we're good to go. But if you look like one of the top one listed on there is ongoing community engagement. The expectation is that even though we did engagement initially to get community input, the expectation is that we have ongoing, regular, whether that's quarterly, semi-annual, whatever it is, we have to figure out a way to continually ask our constituents what the needs are of the community to see if we need to change over time. And so we can spend money on that. Another piece is you could spend money on increased instructional times, you could use it for summer programs, before and after school programs. I'll look them all before I can show what we got planned for this next year. Improved health and safety of students, of social and emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, student mental health, behavioral health. Use the money to reduce class sizes. Like initially, we were going to hire a kindergarten teacher, and never came to fruition. Our class sizes were fairly small in that area, so we were kind of the catch-all one is the well-rounded education. It develops a lot of different things in there. So you can use it for accelerated college credit programs. You could pretty wide open. You can be pretty creative and well-rounded education. Use it for licensed salaries. So again, under a well-rounded education, under increased instructional time, you can pay people to do programs, same with classified salary. It's got on the back side as well as the next side. For professional technical services, it could be transportation, it could be travel for professional development or other types of things. Improving communication services with our community. In this case, this last year, we're putting the phone systems to improve our communication with parents and within the school. Supplies and material, and then capital outlay. We used it this last year as well for the camera systems to improve safety. So that was a capital outlay. So that being said, I'm just going to pass around. Here is what we currently have with this current year's budget. It's more of like take a look at it and say, hey, I don't know how much this you can really pull off this year. But are there other needs I guess you would see as a board that meets the criteria here, meets the need of our community that we're not doing or we could do? I'll wait till everybody has to look through this. This is just a general budget. So you see in here, the first one listed, you know, we've hired, plan is to hire a school nurse. We have that in place, the benefits and supplies. To hire 2 school counselors, we've done that. The big one for this year is after-school programming offerings by teachers. Really what came out of those surveys and things is more opportunities for kids. And so whether it's robotics club, whether it's esports, I mean, they look at me if I say that. Whatever it might be, that's why we offered at the end of last year some after-school program time with elementary. We had a couple of teachers that were willing to do some sporting activities after school, just to engage kids longer in school, just to kind of get that. But we could offer new clubs, new things to really engage our kids more within our school. We advertise right now for a parent involvement coordinator. And that's something more just a way to get our parents more involved in volunteering, to not only maybe make new programs, but find what programs are working and enhance them, and to just improve our overall communication with our parents in our district. Kind of that PR person for the district. So that position's advertised. You know, as employers out there, you know how hard it is to find people. So, you know, that person had to be the right person for your PR person, that person bringing parents in. That's going to be probably a tough one to fill, but we're going to try it. When we added as well as a library, technicians, essentially assistant librarian that's not certified, but more of a classified person to get kids access to our libraries at a higher level. Right now we have one district librarian, and she's stretched right now between 2 buildings. She's kind of started to work on this library, but it's a long shot for being kind of modernized, ready to go. And then we've committed to the tribe $10,000 to support Tawakanobi, so they get tutors, teachers being willing and able to go after school and help those kids out there in their after school program and support them that way. And then the final one is transportation to the after school. We put together an after school activities bus at the end of last year. A few students take advantage of this. Kind of hoping to get that rolling again this fall, with the sense that it takes away one more barrier that would keep a student from coming. If transportation is the reason they're not doing after school sports, and let's eliminate that barrier and find them a way to get home. So that's the goal, is really to increase student participation. So, any general overall thoughts about those?
What are administrative costs?
Where do you begin? So at the top, I think it's just the indirect. Oh, what are
What we charge the general fund, pay the bills and do the paperwork.
it's essentially what we can take off the top and use it towards general district budget.
On your last note about getting kids more, almost, you know, our parent involvement coordinator, almost need a student involvement coordinator, it seems like these days. Like kids just, it appears to me, from outside looking at participation and stuff is way low.
We're hoping that this year will be a little bit different when in the school year looks a little more normal when it comes to the actual scheduling piece of it. We'll have a leadership class, we'll have our ASB officers a little bit more also. And we're hopeful that problem will start to work its way out. That's right. Because we agree with you. I mean, our numbers,
Well,
and not just in sports and
I
everything.
think that person could help with that, between helping
I actually just had to
principals
do-
and athletic directors figuring out a way, what do kids want?
Actually, I just had a new family to the community who has a high school age boy ask me how they find out what is going on, what's being offered. I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't know how you find out.
I think we all kind of get used to, here's the activities we offer, and if you've been here, you just kind of know, right?
And this is supposedly like a 16, 6'3", like 200-pound kid.
We
It's
gotta
just
talk to this kid.
We always
gonna be a
give-
run.
Hey, we always give,
Oh, he finally found his way there.
we always give them the school's phone number, and if they're 6'3", 230, or maybe throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, we give them the personal cell number they need. Just depends on where the recruit is.
Please sign that.
Cross country, no.
Make sure we get them out.
No,
I guess I would ask. Steve
I've met
what
the
this-
parents, yeah. This guy, They does not look like a cross-country runner.
But so if we don't, perchance this year, if we're unable to find a parent coordinator, we're unable to hire a library technician or things like that. What, do you have any ideas as a board, as you think, like, what other ideas could we bring in that would enhance the student experience in our schools and the parent experience in our schools? Is there anything else that you could think of that would be good use of our funds?
I would defer to the people with boots in the schools. If you could have whatever you want, what you need. It's not on that list.
It becomes such a, teachers are so busy, and then we've all been teachers, and so it's hard to think, you know, let's ask our teachers to do one more program. And, you know, with this, it's been great to do like our after school club at Slater's, that stuff helped out with. It was such a great program, and I mean, the responses from parents was, you know, it's about time you offer something like this. But it stretches our staff so thin that it's so hard to think, you know, more. So how do we build what we have? How do we, you know, get a curriculum for the social emotional learning? You know, it's easy. Let me give you the tools to have it, so you have it in your classroom. But I know that that's a huge barrier. It's just teachers are busy. You know, educating kids, providing help when they get stuck on things, or after school, or tutoring them.
About sped needs.
Oh, that's me too.
That's me, so.
You know, our numbers have gone up quite a bit this year, and I think some of that was due to COVID truly, and seeing these kids not be able to access the material. The nice thing is that at the high school, we've built a sensory room. The special education teacher, Mrs. Leonardo, has done a fabulous job. One of the big things this year that we're excited about is taking over the assistive technology piece, and that goes anywhere from, you know, a weighted vest to those little copper things that you see that look like unicorns, and sensory breaks, and all the way to a laptop that will speak for the child. And so we've allocated quite a bit of funds to replace the things that we didn't get to keep, because High Desert isn't doing that service for us anymore. And so our teachers are pretty excited, our special education teachers are. The other thing that we're working really hard is working with our 2 counselors for kids who have those emotional needs on top of that. And so, I mean, they always need more, but so far we're doing pretty good getting them caught up and keeping their grades up, and helping them access what they need to within the classroom.
Are you asking in terms of how do we get kids more involved, like after school activities? Is that what you're asking, or?
No, I just want to know, is there anything not on that list that we could use these funds for? It would be a higher priority than any of these things on this list. Or, you know, if we don't get a parent involvement coordinator this year, is there a good use for those funds that we have planned for poles away for a rainy day.
Or can you either?
No, but I think we have to use them by the end of the year. At the end, we don't use it, they go away. And just get rolled into everybody else's budget for the next year.
Yeah, it's, I never asked that earlier, but is it use it or lose
There's
it?
there's some programs where you can just roll it over, you can use it, but this one in particular, like, it just
Yeah,
gets
I don't know
rolled
the
over
time
into the
frame is,
general.
but it's not 2-year program. This is probably have till June 30th, maybe September 30th. just like-
This money be here next year.
Oh,
The new, to
Yeah.
pay these new
So
positions.
if we find someone,
Yep.
it'll keep going, but if we don't, then it goes away.
Or we gotta figure out a way to spend it, right?
Yeah, I imagine if we never spend the full amount we're given, then they will eventually lower what we're offered. I don't know, it's such a new program. I'm not sure what.
How late can you reallocate it?
I think we can revise our plan anytime, it just has to get approved, so we just put in for like, here's how we're changing. They're completely fine with that because they want you to continue to reach out to your community as things change and morph. They want you to match those funds to your needs.
Because there's nothing on this list that's not needed. I mean, this is pretty, but like you said, if you don't get it, you've got to find another place to do it.
Right, we need people. Recruitment, you know, if you look at the recruitment board, what we're trying to hire and for what reasons, you know, we're talking about sped. The one thing we need is more classified people coming in and being ed assistants in the classrooms to support those kids. You know, we've got what, that COVID generation of kids, you know, who are essentially maybe a year and a half behind academically. We need people to come in, a small army of ed assistants to come into our schools and help get those kids caught up. Be able to pull those kids from the classrooms to give them the supports they need and fulfill their IEPs or 504s, whatever the case might be. So that's what we need is we need people.
And we're not.
And we're not getting that. So it's not a matter of money, you know, throwing money at it. It's a matter of recruitment. We get people that.
You know, if you want to maximize, you know, what teachers do, you know, free up their time to teach. But I don't know how many employees are in the district. Under, I mean, is this a big enough organization to have like an HR person that can tend to, and I don't know if that would fit under this, but as far as support for teachers, for, you know, to really ramp up that, you know, you can go into, you have some focus on, you know, employee support, recruitment, you know, all those areas that we struggle with. To me, that seems like that would be worthwhile as big as the organization is to have more support in that realm. But, you know, trying to fit that in with this, I don't know.
They could write grants as well.
They could write grants as well.
You know, you're always seeking out a grant to improve programs.
It's a big organization, and there's a lot of moving parts, and they can, I mean, they're focused on keeping employees happy, engaged, and they're always on the pipeline, you know, working on recruiting and things like that. So to me, that would be a gap.
Years ago, we had Mike Boyle, that was his main things. Grant
Grant writing is something we could fall in there, but you know, you don't want to get too broad or they get watered down with other things. So
I'm curious, because you say it's hard to find people. And I haven't seen any, but I'm not looking. How do you advertise?
Can I take this
Yeah,
one?
take that. A band teacher that just came up, give her that example. That was great.
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, I'm talking about like the lower, like just ed assistants and stuff like he's like lower level.
For parapro, custodian, food service, it goes to every school. So they put it on their job boards, on front doors, in their teacher lounge. It goes on our website, it goes on our employment page. Then it goes to K-12 job spot automatically. It goes to, I put it on Facebook. I put it on COSA, and sometimes it depends on the position. I put it on
In the local paper.
What's COSA?
Coalition of School Personnel Association. It's probably the most popular.
Does any of it go to colleges?
I do Handshake, I was getting there. That
Okay.
goes, I'm tied to like 40 in the western side, but they don't do classified positions. So only certified or administrative. And then School Spring, they do everything. Indeed, if it's a hard position, like school nurse I did. some of the more technical ones, but that one.
So like for education jobs, it's all over the place. My
For
question,
education, yeah, there's specific places that.
my question was more like the assistant, yeah, because like I said, I live locally. I've never actually seen an advertisement for one, but I might not be looking at it, but I don't read the newspaper.
Right.
And I don't,
You know, the
I'm not looking for a job, but,
For our website,
and I obviously,
If
like
you're
we
gonna-
already discussed, I understand how hard it is to
word of
advertise.
mouth, I
We, you know,
mean,
we do social media advertisement for employment, that don't.
I don't think
work, so
social media works at all.
People can follow instructions.
Well, as we all know, this isn't unique to us.
Now,
I mean, I've
Actually,
got
we're
a couple
doing
friends
pretty
that are in
well.
the valley, we usually don't have hiring problems, they're getting ready to start school in 3 weeks, they're missing 2 teachers. I mean, this is across the board, and this was coming, 4 or 5 years ago, they told us nationally that we're gonna have a national shortage in the educational world. And that within 7 years, and that was 5 years ago, so within 2-3 years, you're gonna have teaching positions that will not get filled, and you will have to adjust them. You're gonna have educational assistant positions that will not get filled. People are not going into the education world. One, the para, the educational situation, obviously, a lot of times with your educational assistants and para, they have a spouse that works, and because typically it's not the highest paying job to be able to supplement incomes with a married and a family. It's more difficult, so that they find jobs that maybe pay more. Teacher wise, we know the problem with teachers. We absolutely do. I mean, they're gonna go and they're gonna pay $90,000 to $100,000 for a college education and come out and make $45,000 a year. They can't pay their student loans. So the teaching job does not pay what the teaching license costs. And that's across the board too. I mean, you'd have to raise, so therefore we knew that was coming, because right now, what's blowing up? Computers and the tech world and all that stuff, and you can go in and do that and make, I got a student I taught that made $75,000 his first year out of college as a guy in the tech world. And so and we're gonna continue to see that. That's not going away. So like you said, Brenda does a great job of advertising, but you're gonna have to get innovative to be able to get to a very, very, very small group of people out there that want to go into education.
so we
When I
have
say education, I
creative,
mean teaching, administrators, office people,
And then
parents, janitors,
and then
everybody.
experts.
right,
Yeah, everybody.
And then
It's-
enticing
The
them.
pool is going to continue to.
but this year, like custodians, for example, I filed for a certificate to hire minor kids. And so we hired 3 students for each, a grounds, one for the high school, one for Hines. And they helped us all summer clean and do that. And so we were kind of talking about and working with Aaron and Denise Rose about doing the internship program and helping get experience in our schools and in the food services and in the classrooms. And so that was the
Well, like
idea.
those custodial positions that were open, we advertised,
Oh my gosh, for
they're
months.
still open, I think.
Yeah.
Haven't been able to find anybody.
Well, or how about, so Slater had multiple teacher positions open, and we were fortunate to hire 3 amazing candidates and had 3 amazing people apply that got job offers and denied it. So, I mean, they went through the process. One came all the way here on a Saturday, gave her a tour. I mean, loved it, and they don't want to come here. So 3 people turned Slater down.
Well, and I think that's how, and being someone who didn't grow up here, I think we get lots of new teachers who come, and I think that's how we continually have these openings, is they come because they come for experience, and the hope is that they fall in love with the community, at least, in our family, that's what happened, is we came and for a job and went, oh, we really like it here. I like people, I like the lifestyle, I like but it's not for everyone. We are very rural, and there's not, we looked at rental houses coming here, it's hard to recruit to say, come on over, it's a really great place, you'll love the community, good luck finding a rental.
Yeah, so we're gonna stay in a hotel.
And so, I think there's barriers beyond just getting the word out there, and it's getting, we love to hire local people, because hopefully they have somewhere to live, and they love the community. This is where they want to be to raise their family. And so getting people, a taste of that Harney County lifestyle like our big posters with pictures and things like that. I think that that's huge, like come enjoy the open air.
Another thing that we've kind of changed or done or whatever, I mean, two of the teachers that we hired this year, Sarah Aileen and Savannah Bennett, that's what you call grow your own. So we've had to do that, and we're helping both of them get their licenses, and they're working through on their programs, and so that's helpful. That's,
I mean, I think that's the goal, like especially.
yeah, because we know they're staying,
Yeah.
you know.
Do our schools do any tutoring programs, like the high school goes to elementary school? Do we implement much of that?
I don't think so right now, do we?
Well, we can do that through the internship with Harney County Partners or whatever, like High Desert Partnership. They can do that as part of their school work program, but I don't know if it's something that we do, like, I guess if you're saying like on Tuesdays or something once a month, we don't, you know, don't put down, but it's something that we can provide if the kid is interested in that. And I know some kids have done it, and I think Reagan went. We had a couple other kids, I want to say Sierra Montague did for a bit, and now she's working.
And now we hired her
at Slater.
She works at Slater.
And so that it's there, but when, you know, it's like a lot of things when you do the internship, you have your kids who are like, well, I want to go to medical, and they get there and they're there and they like it, but then they're like, I don't. Then they want to try something different. So, you know, I mean, it's there, it's an option, kids take it, but it's,
It was
I
good.
don't know,
It was
it
good.
just kind of takes a certain kid.
I'm gonna tag on to that. It allows you to see what you don't, like, this may not be for me. In Reagan's case, Reagan already knew she wanted to go into psychology. She's been focused on sports psychology. But when she was at Slater, she spent, I would say, a quarter of her time in a classroom tutoring. And she worked in kindergarten, first grade and second grade. But she spent the other 3/4 of her time just working in this bedroom with some of students who are genuinely learning basic skills, and she fell in love with it. And so that's a high need area. And one day when she's done going to the Olympics and all of that, and she's educated, it would be great to be able to have her come back here and do that. But we want her to go live a few times, so it might take a while.
It made me think that we were talking before the meeting, there's this hiring problem everywhere, especially in Harney County. Every industry, there's a hiring problem. And I hear more and more about the only people, well, at Big R, I saw these new faces, and they're saying we hired a bunch, we just started hiring high school age kids because they're the ones that will work because they can't draw unemployment anyway.
Yeah.
Then it made me think about the internship program you're talking about. And in my experience, I have seen those upper class kids go work, especially middle and elementary schools. And if we can't get more people in the classroom, more aides, if they could be utilized, and from what I've seen, I mean, they love it. They usually love going reading to those kids or doing whatever it takes to help. Some of them might be better suited for helping with food services, but I would really look into that and see what kind of, because there's got to be some seniors with open periods or already have all their credits.
Well, that actually kind of goes back to why I said I'm actually not opposed to K through 12 school in one location. Because that's how I grew up. And there was more, I believe, positive involvement. Parents are concerned about negative involvement, but I thought there was more positive involvement with high schoolers and elementary students.
You turn them into role models without saying you're automatic. I went to one. That's the only reason I say that is you automatically, oh, I want to be like them.
Yeah.
And you can see, oh, I don't want to be like that one. You don't, it doesn't take an adult to tell them, stay away from it. They know.
So my first
Nobody
teaching
wants to be in
experience was in a
trouble.
K-12 building of like 300 people, and it was, we didn't do a lot of tutoring per se, but the school counselor, he had a program called Cross Age Linking, and it was high school age kids, he'd pick a dozen of them, and they worked with him the last period of the day, and they were assigned elementary kids. It was kind of privileged to be in the program, but they were targeted kids that needed some help socially and emotional. And he would kind of train the high school kids on how to work with them. And super positive programming, made sure he took kids that were good role models.
Yeah, I did. I was a TA for elementary classes my senior year because I could walk to the class.
Yeah.
I actually did 2 periods of TA my senior year because I was like one of those kids Rob's talking about that have a much better time.
Yeah.
Credits wise. And so,
Good idea though.
and obviously there's, I don't know how it works liability wise, if you're asking high school kids to drive from here to Slater to go be a TA. I don't know if that's allowed for them. Technically, how it
There's
turns
a
into a closed campus.
labor.
No, they do.
They used to do that.
Yeah.
They used to do that. Middle school.
It's hard though, because we have to make sure it's the right kid, and then I'm sure that there's
that.
Absolutely.
I think that, I like what Brandy shared about, trying it, like, oh, I like that, but I don't like that, and again, if they don't want to be there, they'll make sure you know that, and making sure that there's a way to pair the kids up, and maybe that's something that, Maggie and Nikki, our counselors, can start to, 6 through 12 will have, it's called a sources of strength team, and essentially it's get kids riled up to take care of one another team. And so maybe that's something too that they could start discussing what would that look like? And I wouldn't want to just dump any high schooler who might want to help at the elementary school without giving them some training. So when he says, gee, I don't know how to read, the kid doesn't say, well, you better learn, because that doesn't help anyone. But giving the students the voice and the understanding and the training to be able to socially, emotionally, and academically assist the younger students.
Yeah, no, I think that's how you get people to want to be in education is, my experience was similar. I did physical education for like third graders as a TA. And I figured that's probably why I've spent most of my life coaching some sort of youth sport, because I enjoyed it. But I also get concerned sometimes, it seems like sometimes those are reserved for the good students, kids who get the really good grades. Only they go do the TA stuff. And you might actually be excluding a C student who really likes kids, but they're being excluded because they're struggling academically, so we can't let them have a period to go. And that also can come in, that some of those kids might actually go on to be. I had a teacher when I was a kid that didn't get his teaching license until he was 51. He was in the Navy and did all sorts of other stuff. And so.
Well, I think that's one thing we're trying to get away from, is that very thing of like, oh, you don't have very good grades, so you can't go. We're actually trying to get more of those kids out and about, because we understand like, hey, school, it's not your favorite thing in the world potentially. And so let's put you into something that you are super interested in, see if we can kind of get you more motivated or more excited about wanting to be here,
I'd love to see the TA program really bolstered up. That I feel like, I don't know if that's our role as a board to say jack that thing up, but I think there might be a lot of underutilized resources in that. And looking at this list, if we couldn't hire everyone on here, I would like to see more emphasis on the career and technical education. What pathways do we offer now besides the ag and maybe some, what do we offer?
Well, we have the health and career, right? Health and
occupational services.
Occupational services. There you go. I think that he hasn't got a pathway yet for construction trades, but the classes are all right. I think Mario, between the two of them, right?
Yeah, they kind of pair up together between our words classes and our.
But I don't think it's a
construction
full
blown
program, is it?
No, Mario's is, Sean's is, it's a work in progress, because I think he's trying to get into more like a production side of things, and then the 3D printing, bringing that back in as well. And then of course all of our agricultural, horticulture, our welding, all of our pro stuff is there. And Mr. Medley knows all of them, but.
Something that's kind of in between, and obviously you don't have staff to do it, but it's technology in work, like not even just ag, but construction and stuff. I don't know how it would be possible, but I would love to see some at least dabbling into that, because actually nowadays the construction and agricultural roles, which go on right here where we live, are extremely technology based. Like way more than people realize. It's becoming very hands-off. And
Like the tractors with the.
yeah, I mean, it's extremely technology based, and I actually went to a training, and that's how they told us to advertise ourselves for hiring, is as a technology company instead of an ag company. And obviously you don't have the staff for it, but like, along Rob's questions about CTE, that is another missed opportunity.
And I think we're looking to add some more technology sides to some of our programs. Like for example, our horticulture program would like to do a website of some sort to where they can sell their vegetables and stuff online, to get more of a technology and marketing background to it. So there's parts where they're adding it, but then there's parts for for us, maybe I shouldn't say for everybody, but a lot of our kids, they spend too much time in front of.
Well, no, I'm not referring to actually being on the computer.
Right, but
I'm
I
not
mean,
talking about
it's-
the technology in it, like, auto guide, laser leveling, you know, laser controlled hydraulics,
Oh, and I think, yeah, we've got. I mean,
that kind of
some
stuff.
those.
Even, like, kind of along the lines you have it in your greenhouse, your electronically controlled sprinklers.
Yeah, and so we have those sorts of things.
You know, just encouraging kids to actually be interested in that, you know, that exact function of business.
In terms of TAs overall, I guess my concern is that we start calling them TAs. Sometimes what I've seen over time is they become kind of this working person for the teacher. I guess I would want to make sure any kind of TA program, they're actually learning, it's for them, right? It's like, certainly we're getting benefit out of this other students, but I don't want to see that person just be a TA to put in some time, right? Like it needs to be a learning and develop.
Yeah, not a, go
opportunity.
run these copies for me.
Yeah, that kind of just drives me crazy. Like, no, they're in school to learn. We want them to learn and progress. And so that's
Somebody's got to work on college.
I just, it's hard to convince a kid that they want to be a teacher when they're just making copies all day. Because
That's true.
Being a teacher is just making copies. This is not fun.
You mean it's not just for the bulletin books?
right. I think you're saying, no.
Talk about pathways, like I mean that very specifically, the career pathways that have a certified CTE program in the school. And then identified career pathways and articulation with community colleges. And I didn't know if there are any other that would fit our community well, like health sciences. I don't know what our relationship's like with TVCC, and I figured we talk more about this tonight, because we can talk about that building and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually on my radar as well, just with some of the kids that I associate with. You know, that pathway, you see a lot of our peer schools, and I don't know peer schools, but a lot of other schools in the state, you can graduate with an associate's degree. And it's hard to fit, you know, we've got a finite number of teachers and you've got all these different paths to do, but you know, is that, how far away could we be from offering like that?
I can tell you from experience that Ryan graduated with almost 30 college credits, and I mean, he didn't have an associate's because at the time, help me, Aaron, TVCC was not very supportive. They were impossible to get hold of.
Is
The
there
little
other,
building
are
here,
there
there's
other
nobody.
avenues that we can?
Yes, I've heard Central Oregon is much better.
Because that's a
The other
huge
one?
thing, it's a lot of kids graduate.
Yeah, and we're working more. TVC's gotten better, because I think there was a gap there, because we have this building here, but I don't know, you wouldn't necessarily call it a liaison to TVCC. Was kind of going through a process of trying to get all the qualifications, and I was like, I found a different job, and so it was that. So now we've got a better connection with TVCC, so we're able to get going on that more. We're working with CSCC as well, and so there's options. And so now we're also, this year, we have more college math courses that we're being able to offer, college writing, and then also through our health occupations, we have that. So it's starting to get better with our communication and our coordinator, I guess you could say. They're a little bit more helpful. So I think we're gonna get back to that point. There's definitely a breakdown in communication.
Well, kind of on the CT line too, also I wonder, not even associates to do, but like, is there a pathway that we could build eventually to where a kid can graduate with a welding certificate
We do that.
or something, you
Or
know,
a
those type
CNA
of
position.
trades where you're actually graduate ready. I see these super annoying commercials on TV for the K-12 Academy online, but they advertise, you know, they got people graduating from high school that are CNA certified already. I mean, graduate from high school really work at the hospital.
And I know that with the prison, they do a lot of welding, right? The welding certification, when they come to there, we typically have a meet up here with our welding teachers so that our kids can do the same. So yeah. We're doing those things. It's just, typically, I guess we don't do a good job sharing.
Yeah, and a hard thing too is a lot of that comes down to certification of our staff and time. I mean, they have to teach the basic classes also. So I graduated high school with a 2-year degree, but I went to the community college and high school. And I know a lot of kids, and again, I looked at it for, it becomes a trajectory thing for our students. And a lot of them are utilizing, online classes in their own time and things like that. And you know, with the staff we have, and they have full loads and having the right certifications, and we really have to lean on our partner community colleges to help us.
To go back to this list, and if there were an opening, because it sounds like what is budgeted for on this list is what we need, but if we couldn't get one of those filled, what would be the next CTE avenue that we could add that would be fitting for our talents at the school and what our community needs? We've got ag, we've got the health sciences going, and then within ag.
I think it'd be technology, honestly, whether it's coding or something like that. Coding seems to be kind of the speed of programming.
How far of a stretch would that be to get that going with all that we've invested in our technology infrastructure?
I think the biggest hurdle we face is the personnel. Finding somebody to hire in the technology field to come in and teach technology. Because generally those people that know technology, they can go to the industry and make bank.
Our tech guys don't want to teach a bunch of high
It's
school.
hard to believe. So I mean, that's usually the biggest struggle. I mean, I think for high school, don't you have a coding or you have something in
Yeah,
there?
we have a couple teachers that are able to teach like the basics of coding. And we offered it last spring and we had a pretty good turnout of kids that were interested in it. And I think we worked it into our schedule again this year. And so, but you know, I mean, they're able to do the basics. I don't know, I'm not a coding person, so I don't know how advanced or they get in there, but I know one of our teachers is excited to potentially build upon it and go with your basic coding and then build them into the next level. So similar to like a Woods program with the Woods 1, you get the basics, you go to Woods 2, Woods 3. So you're kind of starting with that group, finding the ones that are super interested, they move on, you know, kind of build upon it, so.
Starting a program with coding anyway, there's a lot, most of the curriculum out there right now allows teachers to kind of learn as they go. They can take a basic teacher that really doesn't know it, they can teach the teacher along with the kids, and then teachers generally get it. It's bringing it to that next level of advance. You hope that teacher continues to learn, continues to stay excited about it and grow so they can get more advanced. But I would say that'd be the next most logical program that the high school teachers are also talking about.
There were 3, at first there was just one, but at the USA diving camp or academy where Reagan's been for the last year, she thought there was just one of her teammates that was going to college on full gaming and coding scholarship and also on the diving team. But there were actually 3, 2 of them are going to Purdue on full scholarships just in technology, gaming and coding. I don't know all the terminology, and also on the diving team, but exceptional opportunities.
Well, yeah, actually, no, Chief Graduate McCrane, that he lives in Utah and that's all he does is coding. Makes way better money than his dad does, also, right?
They're comfortable.
I guess that would be my 2 cents is if this budget didn't pan out, if you weren't able to get somebody hired because of hiring shortages, that's where I'd put the money is maybe towards technology. What is the
My thing is everything on this list is great, but if we can't hire the bodies to execute any of this, we're back to square one.
But the only that one is the one we can't hire, right? We've already got the rest of them except for.
We don't
We don't have the parent involvement coordinator.
So we've
We
got
don't
that
have a
rest.
library exec. We have a nurse.
And we hired the 2 counselors.
Yeah, when I was teaching my computer class, we did, I would have the kids, until I was 6th graders. So at the middle school level, we have a computer class, and I have the kids learning basic technical skills, and then I taught them how to use those Microsoft Office programs. So I taught them about the basics of Word and Excel and Access, and then there's a bunch of Chromebooks. I morphed that into using Google Docs. They're sweet. And so we did some projects. And the kids really had a good time. I know that Mr. Peters, that's kind of what we took over. Classes for it. It was awesome. And we did dabble in coaching. The kids really liked the coding. I told the kids, I said, I'm not a coding person, but if there's enough programs out there now, teacher can learn that kind of language as they go. So I would always sit on the computer there before.
That's how it is.
And so,
Businesses that may know where they're going.
it's big, I mean, whether it's in agriculture.
not
or it's out here, it's a big retired Navy pilot, just so they're, spent 20 years flying jets. His last stint was flying F-18 pilots. He got out and he was, making money driving, flying his $50,000 drone around a rancher's field, farmer's field, taking infrared photos of, on water.
Yeah.
Not on the water, not the water.
Aerial
So
mapping is
that's the kind of stuff that
Yeah.
I think get kids really pumped about. The kids have to understand that, and I would tell the kids in this computer class, I said, look, it's all fun and games, and you want to do the really cool computer tech stuff. I said, and coding stuff, I said, this is where it starts.
Yeah.
Especially like Microsoft, I took an Excel switch, it's like Excel class. So you have to use that computer program. Can I build a formula in a Microsoft Excel, and I'd like to do that, then I can move my way up and start coding really cool graphics for the next Call of Duty game. I don't know, but the kids really want the really cool stuff right here, right now, especially with computers and coding. They don't realize they have to grind and put in the time. And that's the one thing that I found with the computers classes, especially with kids that young, they want. So
That's kind of interesting to bring it up, because like the drone thing, even, I don't know how that works as far as the school being involved, but that's actually a big deal. Aerial mapping is huge now, especially actually, Harney County is way behind on it. Harney County is actually the place that should be taking place the most with our water issues and our soil issues. That aerial mapping is, I would imagine kids would just eat that up.
Ryan's starting to take classes in University of Idaho. He's working out at the refuge, and there's one lady out there that is qualified to do it. That's it, they need them.
And yeah, that's, I mean,
And I don't know if it's the same direction, but like, we hire summer camp, like, can we hire someone from the NASA outreach to come to Harney County and do a summer camp for 2 weeks? Like, fine, we can't get people, but
And
let's
summer programs are involved.
taste
so, yeah.
things. I don't know, I mean, all of these bigger organizations have these outreach programs to come out and then we just need a school personnel to, monitor the masses. But if we OMSI does kinds of outreach, and I know that I look personally for my son at camps, because again, I want you to taste marine biology and, I don't know.
I actually reached out to AGCO, which is massive, and asked them if they had anything for teaching like high school age kids introduction to technology, because I was curious. And that question just confused the heck out of me, like, wait, what? We've never considered starting to deal with kids. So part of it, you're gonna run into some industries where they're not,
Oh, yeah.
they're like, oh, wait, no, we never plan on recruiting 16-year-olds.
But at least it just can start to sample different
Yeah.
fields and different things, and again, oh, that's really neat, or, ooh, I'm not so into this big stuff.
Mr. Quick, was there any feedback on the student investment act plan that you were looking for that didn't get?
No, mostly I do want to make sure you guys are aware of kind of where we're spending the money this year and kind of realize the challenges we have with the plan that's currently in place. And so if we don't hire a couple of these people, maybe ideas that you may have, feedback. Again, it's one of those things that we need continuous ongoing community input for. So I will probably be scheduling meetings throughout the year, maybe once a quarter, just to try to seek information from people, what the needs are of their kids and for kids themselves. They have very specific groups that I have to look at. I think the new ESSER 3 funds, they've added the additional group of incarcerated youth. So kids that are coming out of jail back in your schools, are you getting their input on what their needs are? And that's a requirement. So, and that ESSER 3 is really based on the magic word equity. So putting together the plan is really challenging for us. We're not really super diverse here in Harney County. We do have tribal members, but beyond tribal members, pretty white here. So when we say equity, a lot of times I'm like, we serve all students, we make opportunities available to all students at all times. And really the big group in our county that they really want to pay attention to is the socioeconomically disadvantaged. People are free and reduced. You can't necessarily identify who those kids are, so you have to kind of generally realize we have kids that come from families that don't make a ton of money, and those are the ones that generally struggle in school. So what are we doing for those kids? And that's why we looked at opportunities, like getting them engaged in school, finding opportunities for them. So it's helpful just to have, so you guys have the information. Undoubtedly, I'll be bringing it back to you in the next couple of months and say, here's kind of our progress, where we're at.
So you may need a 5-minute break before we go to facilities.
Probably what.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
I'll take a free list.
Sorry.
Yeah, good job answering this question. Yeah. Somebody pitched me again.
I bet you handled it perfectly.
No, I get
I
all.
bet you I don't
I
even
get all
need to be here.
nervous.
In fact, you know what? I don't even need to be here. I'm gonna.
You know, I don't even need to be
I'm
here.
going to the lake.
It's not really fair because you've been in IT, so I can answer those questions. So
She got into that one pretty good.
maybe we should ask some questions.
We should get in some of my high shoes.
Yeah, they're out and about.
Got a bowl, don't you?
Oh. Hey, we're spending a lot of money.
You better be.
I think I spent 35,000 today.
The hell you buying for 35?
I got myself a new chair,
Yeah.
new desk,
I actually looked
got a
at
new
that
desk
last
light,
night and was like, oh,
really nice, like one of those old banker lights, 14 karat gold. Oh, that's worthless, huh?
Still be rolling.
I didn't get chocolate all over my face, so we're good.
No, I have it, Betsy, you're thanking.
Got it.
This sucks.
No, I
Technically, your pulses are.
got talked into
You should still be able to get
I walked in
a
at
shallow breath.
Near my mouth.
So we don't know if
Well,
he had a condition in the past while he was.
When I walked in,
So that part kind of sucks, but, my mom's doing okay. My parents have been with each other for the last 18 years, 24/7. Because they work together in a couple stores and stuff, so. So, yeah, I mean, the only time they went together was if my dad went to Big R or the Weimar to buy ammo or went to the post office, you know? So.
And I was like.
No, there's not enough going on. My dad and my stepmom are 8 years apart, so she's only 65. She's not here. I tried to get her to come here. But she's not. She doesn't have a passion for that. She said that very much at 65. Run of his own. I don't know what she's gonna do. The house that my dad built, my brother's about 7,000 square feet. So it's a bit much for one person. The dad will probably live in my house, so upkeep and care, they did great together. But with one person, it's gonna be a little bit much. So I don't know what that's gonna look like. I know she's they had a really nice one, because that's kind of what they do. She has that for sale. Yeah, just because she's not kind of up by herself. She actually is gonna look at Idaho, and she is gonna be a revenue officer. And she's gonna collect taxes. My client is one out of the family and it doesn't really. No, she's kind of got that room. She's wide awake for years now, but that's kind of how she got into it. I mean, government is like everybody else. They hire people because they're just hiring them. So she'll start out really well. She wanted to be an item, so that's even better. She'll just be right there. So that's even more confusing. Yeah. Sorry, I'm flipping in right now. Yes, yeah. So she'll live in Napa, she'll live in Boise, but yeah, she's gonna be there right now. Well, they said that she'd start at the end of September, but now that, with HR and with the government being so far behind on everything, she said it could be the end of October. So it's not gonna be 7 months right now, she's still. She's only 20, she's only 22, so I don't know how long that will take, but I'm assuming they're gonna look at us and everybody else too. Yeah, she's like, Mom, because we've already told her your taxes. Have I paid all my taxes? And I'm like, well, yeah, you have.
You ain't gonna come back and buy me?
Yeah. She goes, well, we haven't done our taxes this year, and I'm like, I realize that. So, yeah, so no, she's doing, and then Anna's here, Anna's not going anywhere. So, in the time, I've got it right.
I had a great conversation the other day, so.
He's paranoid and nervous. I think it. Yeah, Celeste will probably be his right hand person. I can see him right across the hall. Yeah, oh no.
These are the ones that they don't run across the wall.
Yeah, ask questions, don't try to.
And my boy, you know that, he's not afraid to talk or ask questions.
Well, it's great seeing you.
I'm gonna sit
She's strong.
Never a dull moment when they're out there.
Like, do you see how many parents are gonna get cut off because it's all dying? Right under your alley.
Kids got, you know, Ross and John, through it, and they did a little coaching, so he was still.
I told you you would. I told you.
And
My ears are
pretty
burning.
good.
No, I really do like it.
But it's tough recruitment, sometimes like recruiting teachers, as far as recruiting officials.
Oh, God, it has to be so different. Do you?
Well, some things are the same.
I mean, you know, all those years of pre-K, don't miss them. Those-
I don't miss the potty training stuff, but I mean, there's probably just under a handful where they're ready. It's like the first, like today. And I just.
We have to use this.
When we get stuff together, together with it's no garden. Sorry, Mrs.
Put some more.
You lost away.
I like.
It was.
You
We had ink on the table, we had the whole project. Dark.
We barely have enough room to have JD's house. His house. And he's sitting the house, the TV's like right there, just like this far away. And he has the computer that's like there, I'm like, yes.
They tell me that's my favorite word. Don't you know any other words? Nope.
So.
We had one boy that he was only there for a short time. Every time he was like, it's gonna be a yes day.
It's good.
Yes.
And that's really appreciate about it.
I'm like, no.
I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it.
Coaches.
No, you could have just done it when you was there. The first year wasn't so bad. It was like, yeah, this last year you could have seen.
You know what, if anybody ever says different, say no. Randy says I'm right. And I'll stand behind it. I'll stand behind it.
He's saving.
We're gonna wear this.
Yeah, I used to.
Okay, so then where I need to.
And now
Let's go ahead and reconvene so we can get facilities.
She's gonna tell you.
This is kind of wide open, and hoping the board gives some general direction, maybe you kind of want as a board just talk about where you want to go with facilities in general. we looked at the $4 million state matching grant. If we were to take advantage of that the next go around, well, the next go around, we'd have to let them know next month. It's probably this month for the November election. That's not obviously a potential, but the next go around for the election for the $4 million would be in May. We would have to notify the state by December that we would apply for the grant essentially, that we are going to run in May. So I guess I'd be curious from the board, is running an election this May something that is of interest to you to improve our facilities, to find a way to take advantage of that $4 million match? Would you want to do 4 million only so you can kind of take care of the bare essentials, or do you run into the problem Joe's talking about where people are like, that's just Band-Aid, you know, that's not enough? Or is this not the year to do it? I'd love to hear feedback from the board and kind of your general feelings on that.
Well, my first view, you know, what could you do with 8 million? If we passed a $4 million bond, we got a $4 million match.
You could probably fix your HVAC systems and a few things like that, but beyond that, you're not making deep problems. You're not making deep repairs like visible ones.
I'm not sure with the whole COVID thing and people having taught their own kids for, you know, some of them have to help teach their own kids. I'm not sure I'm not sure right now is the right time to ask, because I think I have said some sentiment, you know, I'm already doing it anyways. So you might have to move away from this time a little bit before you can get parents to forget about the time they had to teach their own kids.
And I know in the past, a lot of our timing has been based on that. We wanted to get that 4 million match.
Yeah.
And it was just time to not face that, let the situation hopefully improve itself. In the meantime, maybe have a site council that has a subcommittee that can say, this is what we want to do, and this is our 5-year plan. We're going to have a bond election in the 4th year to get a facility that everybody wants, and hopefully the majority will support.
I like a long-term strategy, but, you know, I don't know what what we can fix, or what needs to be fixed, just absolutely, you know, this year, next year, whatever, but we need to factor that in, but, you know, even if it's a 10-year plan to get that done, we can work on it, make it successful. I like that better. I think it's a lot better possibility of actually passing.
It just would be a good subcommittee from your site council. No pressure on them to get something on the bond like in May or following November, just.
Yeah, because the problem is if you had a little, somebody's property taxes right now, and 4 or 5 years down the road, you decide you want more, they're definitely not gonna.
Yeah.
They're gonna be against it.
Yeah, we just paid 50 cents, now you
Yeah.
want to pay 30.
Yeah.
All right, I agree.
Do you have any 2 cents on it?
I don't have enough information. I need to have 2 cents. No, and I'm just gonna tell you, but I'm not discussing, there's just stuff that I need to educate myself more on before so a lot of this is very new, so. Work something out and not have it be pertinent to the subject.
I think what might be a good idea for me is I could send you the facility report that our the consultant put together. That kind of goes through every building. And you can see which systems are that need repair over time, the more immediate needs. You can kind of look at that report and see what needs to be done there.
I was in the same boat, Wendy, so it's fine to ask questions. I mean, I wish that I had more, I think, when I first started, because you don't want to feel stupid or whatever, but I have lots of questions that I just put off. And
There's a lot of abbreviations, I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
There's a lot of abbreviations.
You'll
I
never
know what
learn
those
all of them.
abbreviations stand for.
That is
You always create
education.
new ones too, so.
You create new ones, well, that doesn't help.
I just-
Sometimes we just make them up sound smart. We'll just roll out
No, that's
there.
just Robert.
You got a question on not the only one, so.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that
Might as
sounds
well
fine.
ask.
But no, I don't really have any, I mean, it would be nice to see what the, because I don't know what the needs are for each facility. So it would be nice to know where the, you know, which facility needs the most work and which ones. So that, yeah, we kind of put
In
together.
terms of the $4 million grant, Matt, I mean, it's in their state, it's in the biennial budget right now. You know, it was in the previous one. It looks like in the foreseeable future it'll be there. The longer, you know, we put off doing the bond, we just move up higher in the priority list. So it's not like we're dropping down in the list because we're not running it, so. And maybe in the future, put more.
And it's just
Would be
amazing to
smart.
me that $4 million is basically just a Band-Aid. Yeah, it just will Band-Aid everything. So it's just unbelievable.
And basically, that's what our last one, 19 million. What was that?
Yeah.
One we did not pass the big one to build the whole facility. That was like back then, it was like 28 million. We voted it down handily. And then we passed a $19 million Band-Aid like 7 years later.
Yeah.
Didn't understand it.
And that should be paid off in 25, is that right? 2025, right? I can't remember the.
Maybe that gives us 4 years for this committee to come up with a long-term plan. Look at that facilities report.
Oh, maybe that was kind of crazy. You know, I always wonder if there's like alternative building options or something for the, because you think about like in the private sector, when you build a shop or something, it doesn't compare, but there's so many more rules that apply when it's a government building that it's just.
I mean, this
Like
is
prevailing
just a
wage.
lot of-
Prevailing wage is the big one.
Prevailing wage.
They're big, they're huge buildings.
I like the idea of patience. This year is not shaping up to be a good year to push them anyway, and more input from a committee like this. That $4 million is kind of like 0% interest on Capital One card to get you sucked in. But I think when the time is right, our community will pass what we need. It won't matter if there's $4 million capital bond. When the stars align, it'll be just right.
Your thoughts on that Lincoln building? Is you're generally thinking let's put it on the open market and sell off that whole city block?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think we're gonna say the same thing. I see there's no benefit to us whatsoever to have it as in our assets list or whatever.
I think this is the peak of the market, maybe somebody will see something we don't, and it's a great time to sell.
This, a city block there is not big enough actually for us to do anything we need to do later.
No, and it's the vacant stuff on the back of the building is attractive to a developer because there's room for 6 to 8 homes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how attractive the other part of the building is. But, you know, there's people that have visions a lot broader than mine. But when we first started talking about this, I think Rob Fairman was helping us get my ideas. He thought you might start at listing it in like $800,000 range. And then maybe in the meantime, have a number in mind that we're gonna say, we'll take it. Research I did on the modular building for the district office down there was, if you're gonna get one big enough for all the offices they need and a nice, large center area for board meeting. You know, we're talking $250,000 with the foundation and everything. Which I think we can get out of that property. That's not this year or next year. Commercial real estate sometimes moves within days here, and then commercial real estate that I've owned for 27 years. That doesn't move on. So it's just we're gonna have to pay property taxes, which is different. But we'll probably, the longer it sits there, the more problem we're gonna have with vandalism.
Well, and right now,
homeless,
a huge community-wide or county-wide concern is housing options.
Right.
So possibly that might play into our benefit, to get advertised sooner rather than later, because somebody might take a chance on it.
Yeah. And another thing that the board might have to consider is if a developer comes in and said, I'll buy the blank property, but I don't want the building, are we willing to split it off? Get the money off of the part that can be developed right away without someone trying to refurbish that big building or tear it completely down.
I just think it's a big liability, it'll get worse the longer we have it, you know, unless we're gonna sit there and heat it. You know, 2 or 3 winters, but not heated would be a disaster, so, yeah.
But let's face it, once the staff moves out of it, you're gonna have somebody trying to move into it. We don't have a huge problem, but I know the ones that are there are gonna find that building. And a way to get into it.
And they're already sitting in the doorways when we work there.
Cheers.
Like,
Well, that's legal.
apparently.
The bonus is that it is kitty corner from the sheriff's office.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just go.
Well, that's just where they went to go lay down if they got released.
Right.
But yeah, that's just an action item for tonight's board meeting, and I think we should be ready to get some kind of motion to at least give it to the local real estate agents and let them
Get it out there. That's just my opinion. We'll talk about it and we can actually make decisions tonight.
No, I agree. I think we need to dispose of it as soon as possible for a fair price, which is our fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, but not try to get what we think it's worth. No, get out of it as easily as we can.
Yep. But even the best real estate agent, list the price that really works, just know what you will take. As long as we know what he thinks it's worth at 800 roughly, and then we just gotta say, yeah, let's give them permission.
And now those will be discussions, you know, we want to have an executive session or whatever, because they are.
Yeah, there'd be financial matters, but yeah. I think it's pretty much a consensus that we want to dispose of it.
Okay.
On facilities, I do know the Booster Club's gonna come at some point and donate a couple $1,000s toward the starting of a concession stand bathroom for our girls softball field and our track area, which is something that's, I think we need to start thinking about. We've done some improvements up there, and we've done some things that need to be done. You know, it eventually could become a Title IX issue, obviously, and we all know that. But you know, we Mr. Quick 2 years ago set aside some money. We put a brand new fence up there and it had a brand new scoreboard, so we've done some great things for it. But the other problem it creates for Aaron and the athletic side is not having bathrooms out there. Is, you know, our building's open the whole time during a track. So we've got people in and out of the ballot, and we can't do anything about that with that bathroom. Softball game. So the security of our building kind of gets called into question by not having something out there. So again, at the last booster meeting, they talked about maybe coming to the board meeting, maybe a public comment, just commenting that, you know, they're willing to start. And I know it's gonna be a lot more than a couple $1,000s, but they're willing to kind of help out with that and make that one of their projects. So just kind of keep in mind, kind of put it in your radar as we go forward.
That was one of the ideas within the bond itself, was to put the restroom room and concession stand and everything for that area, so.
So along that line, I don't know, so I'm gonna ask, what's the legality of the construction class doing a bunch of that work? Can they?
Well, I think if it's designed,
Kind of depends on how big it is.
they could, and overseen by maybe any licensed contractor.
You know, and our teachers are licensed
Yeah.
contractors, but I mean, I think I can certainly ask Mario. I mean, we can ask him on Monday. But, you know, I mean, what he teaches and what they do, I mean, I would think that what we would build out there would be a brick building.
Similar to what's up.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically what you see your bathrooms construct, you know, outside that the brick stuff can be. Well, now, right now, I'm not a contractor, but it sounds like brick's a lot cheaper than wood.
Yeah.
Yes.
But from that standpoint, I mean, they built a crow's nest out there. You know, so, I mean, I think that could be an option. I think the problem with it is, you know, when you have a contractor or a company come in, they knock it out in a month, 2 months, whatever it may be. You know, we have a contracting class, you know, and they meet 1 period a day or 2 periods a day. I mean, I don't know, as you take longer to do something, what happens in the winter, and I don't know how you take care of it. So I think it's a valid question, and we can certainly throw it out there to Mario to see what he thinks. But my other question is, do we have to consider anything? I mean, because it's gonna cost the material is gonna cost more than $10,000, obviously. So if we're doing it as a school project, do we have legality issues to bid it out if it's more than a certain amount? And do we have liability issues with our kids?
If we were working it as a construction trades class in a project, we wouldn't be able to bid other than things that they couldn't finish. You'd have to probably bid out certain parts of the project to contractors.
Like the plumbing or
Yeah,
electricity?
I mean, it's over $10,000, we're gonna have to bid it out. But I think you could do that. It's really comes down to, does Mario have the willingness and, you know, long-term ability to do that, you know?
Well, especially when I throw out there, I really would like to be part of a indoor hitting facility.
Yeah, so the more you add to it, the bigger it becomes.
So kind of back on this deal, if you don't fill the parent involvement coordinator position, wouldn't that fall under capital outlay?
I like the way you think, Joe.
I mean, so if you don't fill that position, you've got that 40,000 or whatever right there. That would be capital outlay.
The more than 40, because.
And really, the only kicker with it is, again, you're gonna have to make sure you spend it by August 30th.
Yeah.
For this particular cycle, but you could always roll that into the following year. as well.
Most buildings.
Love that.
Yes.
Yes.
And like Randy said, future revenue, but whether maybe just for the boosters, but they reinvest that money. It creates some income even for.
What do you think? Good.
Thank you.
I think the board would be welcome to hear a proposal from the Booster Club on where, maybe some cost estimates. That might include, I'm sure they already know where the water and sewer is out there, where they gotta put it. If you're trying to talk about something that'll work for the softball facility and the track facility.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because we don't typically schedule those two events at the same time.
No.
For safety purposes. But we got a couple really ugly pink buildings out there we'd like to tear down.
Yes.
Well,
That's a principal's decision.
Yeah, we can't take one out. One's kind of-
If it's my decision, I might drive my truck over to them tonight and go change
You
it.
could always change it.
There's one I'm not sure what's in
That's
it.
part of our heating system.
Oh.
The other one is a mystery. Nobody wants to open it.
Oh,
Nobody
geez.
wants to-
Apparently there's snakes over there.
Nobody's opened
That's
the
what
door,
the kids
so.
told me when I was here.
There's probably a dead.
Or a snake.
Yeah.
We'll get back to the next board meeting, get some information from Mario, and I'm sure you'll have another booster meeting before then, we will have that. Awesome.
Because from experience, nothing gets done until the group comes to this board and says, here's what we're gonna do, and here's how we're gonna fund it.
Any other facility discussion?
I could invite Coach Terry Graham, and he's got a list this long, I told him to shut up for a while.
Yeah, this only goes till 5:30.
What is the move-in date on the new district?
Open September 1.
That still is.
It's still there, yes, it said otherwise.
Maybe that's another point for discussion. What, I'm sure you got earmarked everything you're gonna take out of that building until your new office, which probably isn't much. Is there anything left in the building that this district needs, or is it just gonna be left in there? I mean, tables, chairs, desks?
We'll clear it out. If anything that's worth the value, put in surplus, we'll surplus sale.
Our new higher orientation is Thursday and we're doing it there, so we're gonna let all the teachers look, see if they want anything.
I would rather, if we're gonna bake it, I would rather get it cleaned out completely and not create a storage facility.
There you go.
Because
Take
usually
it.
if it sits in storage, it's no good anyway.
Exactly.
Usually.
Tell my wife.
But there are, I mean, you talk about facilities, I know you're talking, Terry has some ideas, you know, about, you know, that lot that sits next to the football field up there. What's the group?
Harney County's
Music.
foundation.
Music Foundation. They, in the past, they do have an agreement with the board that if they built a facility, a performing arts center, that they could use that land. Part of that agreement is having them come back to you on a regular basis to get you updated, which they haven't done lately. Now, I haven't heard any real progress on that one.
I think the real push, the people behind that have just run out of steam.
That's true. It's a lofty goal, lofty project, so.
Beautiful.
But we do have that land there that, you know, we start talking about sporting facilities, athletic facilities, whatever. I mean, that's a good chunk of land. And then also, just so you're aware, that the land right behind Slater, it'd be directly to the west. We own a lot of acreage up behind there that's just not used by the district at all.
That could be.
And
that
if we
could
sell
be a housing
Lincoln,
development.
long-term, we are gonna have some gym shortage issues.
Right.
Come up with some sort of solution,
That
especially
was-
for our wrestling
That was
program.
one of my thoughts on the,
Our middle school programs are the most impacted truthfully with
Yeah.
that lack of gym,
Mhm.
additional gym, I should say.
Can you rent or have an agreement with the Gino gym with the kids club?
I'm sure we can, but since COVID, it's so heavily used by a number of places. I honestly don't know if we could get in for a set amount of time. If we could, it would be great. I don't think we could do our wrestling because we have to leave our mats, and I doubt that they want to leave us to leave our mats down there.
What about Armory?
But
Did you check with them?
that's, they typically, or they used to rent from them, and then Tyler told me there was some sort of falling out at some point, and so I think he's willing to reach back out this year since there's been some time to see, but that one might be kind of.
Is it the tribe?
It's the tribe, but they're also still considered, what is their consideration, an emergency pandemic or something? So they don't, I mean, that was why a lot of their tribal kids didn't attend school last year, so they might be in a different situation, safety, whatever.
Yeah.
But they won't allow us to be in there.
That likely, I talked to Vanessa this week, and that's likely, they're still not even like all the way back in office, and to Wakinobi, if the parent has to check them off and stand right there while they take everyone's temperature, and they're still heavily locked down on all of their regulations.
I know with Gino's gym, they actually tried last summer very hard to kind of keep it fair. We actually had some practice time taken away from us because somebody else wanted to use it, even though we'd already, scheduled it. So, I mean, but then I'd say, no, how long do you want to pay to rent space for your own programs? But they were good for us to deal with. I coached an AAU basketball team, and we practiced there, and it was good for us.
Yeah, I know they're great to work with because I talk to them often. I just don't know if we would be able to get the allotted time for all of our needs.
So an auxiliary gymnasium that we own would be pretty high on the priority list.
Well, wrestling room,
Wrestling
and
room would be
then
great.
would be higher, I think, and then.
Can't we, or didn't we already talk about like a wrestling room, concessions, restrooms in
With
that
an
area?
auxiliary,
Yeah.
or a wrestling room on top.
Right.
Yeah. And that was gonna be a part of the bond. It was gonna be a wrestling room upstairs, auxiliary down with the concessions, locker room, all in one big building out by the track. They were gonna put it back. Which would be still ideal, but I mean, that's a big chunk of money too.
Another charge for the committee. 5-year plan.
I've never been inside of it, so I'm just gonna ask. The old automotive shop, mechanic shop, we don't have any mechanic classes anymore, do we?
It's our construction
Oh, it's construction.
course is
now?
where
I was just wondering who would house wrestling mats.
I mean, I could, but it'd be a little difficult, probably.
We've been holding, I think it'd be hard right now, just because we still have our lifts in there, and we're holding on to the lifts, because we always hope that at some point we can.
Bring it back.
But right now, our construction class has grown because of it, because now they've been able to build sheds, or they build outhouses for Roaring Spring, and they've been able to do a lot more stuff, because they can do it year round. Where before in the second trimester, we could never do construction, because they had such a small building, and they did everything outside. So our construction classes, I think last year, we had 35 kids in there in a trimester for 2 periods, so it's, and they've done a ton of projects for us around the school, so. I mean, it's not, would we love to have mechanics also? Sure. But the construction classes, Mario and them have really stepped up.
Anything else on facilities? Full successes and challenges.
More of a time on the agenda, maybe for the principals, you just be able to have a conversation with them, say, hey, what's working well, what challenges they maybe face, so. Pretty wide open on this particular discussion.
We can start with the elementary. Everything's great.
Oh, there you go.
Right? staff is excited. We've already got lots of plans. And super excited about our new hires this year. And the addition of the counselor that will be at Slater. That will be a very positive thing. We were able to purchase a second step. So it's a very detailed program that she is going to be coming in and teaching in each classroom once a week, similar to how it used to be. We have.
Can you clarify like second steps?
So it's going to be social, emotional, you know, a lot of prevention, all those kinds of things. What a school counselor. I mean, it's what Mrs. Cronin used to teach when she was at Slater. And then we have our schedule ready to go so we can start with interventions right out of the gate at Slater, which will be huge for our kids. So by that, I mean, we'll have a 30-minute walk to read. We'll have a 30-minute math building time where we can, in each grade level the kids, and our struggling kids can get intense support at where they need, and our high kids can be enriched. So we're going to do that with every grade level. And I think that's it. We're going to continue to build up the morale at Slater, and things are looking good. Custodians, we were down to 1.5 custodians this year through summer, and they worked their tails off, and the school looks good. And that was with the addition of summer school. They had 7 classrooms that they had to, you know, do a quick clean and dump garbage and all those things every single day of summer school. So, you know, it put more on their plate, and I have to say that they really, really did well this year. So that's Slater.
For the middle school, I guess starting last year, just for myself, just one of the biggest successes being added to the team and being able to lead them through that last year and provide for them some consistency and leadership. Other successes, we one, being able to keep the language arts teacher and keep that position, to be able to fill that by growing our own facility out of it. It's going to be interesting. I've got a really young staff with, we've got Mrs. Merkinzon, Mr. Wagner, and then they're my veteran teachers. I have 14 staff members, and those are my 2 vets. After I left the classroom, it's like the 3 of us, you know, Vicky and Wendy, and all of our EAs, you know, so it's an interesting mix. It'll be interesting to see how many of them we're able to be able to retain through the years, and then you know, how many have to replace it. So that'll be, as far as challenges go, but it's the success with that is just how young they are, and with last year, how willing they are to step up and want to take on some of those leadership roles and share their ideas and what we can do to make the school better. So that'll be interesting with keeping the teachers that we do, what we'll be able to do this year with our kids. Mr. Quick and I had talked about it before, you know, what can we do to challenge those kids that are on the higher end. So what we're able to do with the staff we've got this year is level the kids as much as we possibly can using some of our assessment data, iReady data. So we're able to level the kids in like a high group, and then a medium and a low group with some of those students. So those kids that are accelerated, maybe we can challenge them or cover the curriculum, you know, faster, and maybe enrich them, you know, near the end of the year. So we put in all the essential stuff. Essential standards. So we're going to try that this year. The other success is being able to have summer school. We had, I know this is in the board report, but you know, just being able to offer summer school and actually have 3 people that were willing to divvy it up for the 6 weeks. You know, so we had 3 teachers doing 2 weeks apiece. So that was a real success too, having offering summer school this year. About as far as.
Just talk a little bit about your summer school there, like the idea that they broke it up into 3 segments like that for teachers, I think encourage them to do it, because that's the struggle with us offering summer schools. Teachers, by the end of the year, they're like done, right? Sometimes your younger teachers maybe need a little extra spending money in the summer, they'll do it, but that was a good idea there. I know in Steph's program with the summer school teachers, the feedback that I read was, instead of 6 weeks, can we make it 4 weeks, right? So, figuring out ways to make that attractive for teachers, do it in the summer. That's our biggest challenge to having a summer school, really. We have funding well up to the teacher to do summer school from the state. So.
And we're talking to them because we focused on math, language arts, and then some STEM skills. And reading through the grant requirements, the biggest thing they want us to focus on was math and language arts. But then what's the draw? So I was doing some research on what makes summer school successful. A lot of it was like around what can kids do that's really hands-on, away from the computers. I told the teachers to get kids away from the Chromebooks. They're tired of being on screens. So there's a lot of room for growth. And I think from here, as long as I can get teachers interested in wanting to do it, I think the program can grow. So.
Are we up?
I want to keep it short.
Sounds right, though. I mean, it is great working with our administrative team. Our administrative team in this district is phenomenal to work with, and they have great mesh. Staff-wise, the high school is the best staff in the district. So, I mean, it doesn't. We love our staff. But I was over at Slater a couple times this summer for the summer school, so I got to applaud with the teachers that are over there. It's great to see that. I walked in the building, like regular school year, so that was awesome. And obviously with Sun's Middle School with this staff, it's fantastic too. But for us, success wise, I'll start with this fact that our staff and our they were so adaptive last year with how we had to start the year with COVID. And we had to go to our teachers and say, guys, I know that last year you voted and we wanted to put in semesters and our matches with college. We need you like trimesters because we need to be able to work 5 periods and cohorts. And so they all jumped right on it. And we said, hey, we need you to do lunch duty. All the teachers did lunch duty throughout the day because we had to split up our lunches and how we did that and our schedules. It was just it was a mess, but every one of our teachers just stepped up and did a fantastic job with it. So that was the mess that the year went so smoothly because our teachers and our paras and Cheryl and Gracie and our janitors just jumped on board. We didn't push back. Everybody got on the same team. So that was great to see. And then obviously our students are fantastic. So as much as they had to adjust throughout the year too, it was great to see. So that part of it. When it comes to going forward, we don't have many new teachers. We got one coming over from the middle school. Thanks. We're in the process of hiring a new band teacher. We're still going. We've hired them off and they've accepted, but we have to find out how to get here from Canada. So anybody wants to go get him? That'd be great. He doesn't drive, so if you want to go get him,
What's a motorcycle?
oh, that's right. But it's still in Vietnam.
That's good, that's right.
Yeah. So
Where in
I don't
Canada?
know.
Saskatchewan.
I'd like
Yeah,
to
a little bit of a jaunt, so.
I was trying to think what's in season.
But I'll tell you this background. Gotta be something up there in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
But we're excited about his background. He's been an international teacher for the last 10 years. Vietnam, China, and Jordan, and we've been kind of all over the place. So we're excited.
We're just working with him for his license.
The licensing part. And then obviously we're bringing over Courtney County, who we're excited about that too. Build a new 3D printing lab that'll be up and a digital art program. Our 3D printing lab, you'll lead Candace, so go down and check it out tonight. We'll unlock it. It's fantastic. We've put in 16 brand new computers, 4 brand new MakerBot 3D printers. The top line stuff. It's going to be a really great program for us. CTE programs, Aaron said she already talked about those, right?
Yeah, covered in phenomenal.
They, their numbers are still growing, and with our Major 98 money, being able to spend money in those areas and put new equipment in there. Our greenhouse, I don't know if you're about to see our greenhouse, but we put a ton of money into our greenhouse this year with how we're set up. And Roxanne and Amy and Miranda do a great job out there with plant sales, and that's really kind of a cool deal. Academically, our freshmen, we ended up right around 88 to 89% of our freshmen on track to graduate. So after last year and how the year was set up, that's a successful number for us. Is it 100%? No, 100% sure. But we didn't sit back and go, that was a failure. It wasn't a failure. I mean, we were in a pretty good spot with that. We have a 9th grade success team that meets, and we have list our kids out. We have them in 3 different risk categories, and we kind of work forward with that. So I think that was a success for us too.
Was, and then we were able to catch a couple up over summer for summer school, so that was even better.
Yeah, our summer school is an online program that Aaron ran with Mr. Walker, who has become really guy. For somebody that does everything on a paper grade book, like he's like that forever. But to know the computer program, he does a fantastic job with it, so we're lucky to have him. And then through the summer, our custodians, we were lucky enough, and our son was too, to have a couple high school workers this summer we hired. And a couple really hardworking kids, and maybe I'm biased, but one of them's my kid. But no, joking aside, and we had an outside facilities kid that came in and did stuff. All 3 of them have done a great job. So I think that was a great program to implement, and I'd love to see that continue every year, because I think our custodians gives them an extra body to do something.
I've had kids ask me, can I get an extra?
Yeah, it's worked well, and I mean, they start at 5:30 in the morning. That's early. I mean, it just is. Going forward, our challenges always are, just the biggest challenge at a high school is always an incoming freshman class. Making sure you can track them, making sure you know where they're at after the first semester, know that they don't get lost in the shuffle if they're one of the students that struggle. So that's always a challenge to know, but I thought we did a really nice job last year on our last professional development day. We met with the 8th grade teachers. We brought them over. We went over the whole list of incoming 8th graders, or incoming freshmen, excuse me. And then put them in our risk management group. So we have an idea. So teachers, when we start this year, they'll know if they have a student that struggles in a certain area. So I think that'll be something that'll help us out, because again, the biggest challenge with graduation rates is on track to graduate after your freshman year. It's just well documented. So for us, we need to make sure that we do a good job, and we really stay on top of the freshman class every year. And then obviously that doesn't mean we set them aside when they're sophomores, but if they're on the right track, they have a tendency to not need as much support as they go forward. So I think that's a really good thing. Cheryl and Grace are back, and I don't want to speak for Aaron, but I will speak for both of us. We can do our jobs without those two, and I know you guys, the office managers, they don't get enough credit for what they do, because first of all, as Cheryl and Gracie, they don't want the credit. They don't even want to be known, and so the same thing with your guys' job, and Brenda at the district office in Paula. You guys talk about an HR person. I know you do HR, but how other hats do you wear? How many hats does Paula wear? So, I don't know why an assistant up there wouldn't be great, but you guys do way too much. But from a high school standpoint, we're excited. I know there's the mandate, the mass, things like that. We're a positive atmosphere at the high school, just like they are at Slater, and just like they are at the middle school. We got to do something. We're going to do it. We're going to paint a picture to it, and we're going to get our kids to jump on board. It's going to be 100% buy-in no matter what. And I'm not just talking about math, I'm talking about everything in general, what you're trying to do to build a culture. We're going to do a good job, me and Aaron, all of our staff, all of our teachers, we're going to do a good job of setting an example of what kind of personality that we want to have here. And when something bad hits us, or something that we're unexpected hits us, our kids know how to handle it. I think our kids are resilient. Kids are little kids are even more resilient. But little kids bounce back really quickly. But again, whatever comes our way, we're prepared to take it on, and we'll move through the school year, and we'll be successful. And from an athletic standpoint, you want to talk about athletics?
Yeah, I think, last year was a huge challenge because our athletics, there wasn't an AD anywhere that ever experienced how to manage sports through COVID. So that was a good learning experience for all of us. And we were able to take some good things from it, and then some things were like, man, I'm gonna have to do that again. But this year is definitely panning out to be a more normal sports season for our kids, which means our clubs and everything else will be more normal too, which is going to be good for our kids, especially after that school day ends. They're going to be able to see, okay, yeah, I was at school today, I was still at 3-foot spacing, I was in a mask, but hey, after school, things are starting to look more normal. And so it's kind of easing them back into that, which is good. We're excited. Our numbers are up. Through the sports seasons through COVID, our numbers were down, but I think that was just kind of the nature of the beast. We've started with every other day school, so a ton of our high schoolers especially were working. And so it's one of those things like, when we're working, it's a weird season, it's a short season, I'm a little out of shape as it is. Maybe I'll just wait till next year when it gets back to normal. So seeing our numbers up has been great. Our football team looks bigger than it has in the past. Volleyball, we have 3 full teams, which is great. Cross country is gonna be a little bit down just through injuries, but, you know, still good size, we should do well. Middle school, I'm working on it. Son's on me every day about wanting to
Not
schedule.
every day, I asked you today.
Close.
It seems like everything.
I know. But we're getting close, and so, it's been good. It's, you know, it's a challenge being the athletic director, vice principal mix. It's a challenge finding that balance of being able to do both really well. So that's been a big challenge, and then kind of, it's my 3rd year, but it kind of feels like my 1st year all over again, because I'm starting as a normal lady again this year, I guess, so. That's probably gonna be the challenge, and then just, kind of still having those lingering COVID things that we have to deal with, as far as traveling, hotels, what certain schools are doing, what other schools are not, because we are gonna travel to some places where their schools are gonna say, no, masks are gonna be worn during this sporting event, or maybe you gotta have them on during this. And so that's gonna be kind of a challenge for our kids and coaches as well. But like Mr. Lindley said, they're resilient, they're more resilient than a lot of us. So I think they're gonna adapt well, and they seem to be excited.
You know, and I'd like, I don't speak too long, but I want to give a big shout out to our coaches last year. You know, I help out, volunteer to help out a little bit on the sports. But I tend to go to a lot of sporting events. I really like to go and watch, and Aaron does too. And our coaches handle, I mean, as I watch other teams come in without masks, and or just the way they handle themselves or carry themselves or leave their areas messy, our coaches do a fantastic job. Really setting a great example. So we're very, and again, I know she talks about, you know, the first, Erin needs more credit than she gets. Because that role last year, I've done that AD role, and I would not have wanted to do that AD role last year, that COVID thing. So I'm glad it was her, not me. But our athletic programs go well, and they run well because she does a great job with them. So, and especially helping son out in school.
Need lots of. Let's piggyback, you mentioned the 9th grade success team that's identifying kids, and we do subscribe to the Oregon Data Suite, which takes a bunch of data and help, you know, within our synergy system, and helps us continually identify students that are at risk. And so that's a program that works K through 12. It just gathers data. We're able to log in and kind of see what their attendance, what their discipline is, what their grades are, and kind of put some little pie charts and identifies them electronically anywhere they could be potentially at risk. So it's cool to see that team was already in place. We got it, but I think it'll just be another tool that we'll be able to use this year. Oregon Data Suite.
Any questions? You know, our other challenge obviously too is, you know, obviously we still have online kids and coming back and forth, so that's a challenge, but it's not as big a challenge as people think. We've got a pretty good system. I tell people that last year, I mean, no matter what's going on this year, it won't be as bad as last year. You know, and the idea that we had our plan set up and how we were able to work back and forth. So last year really prepared us for not only a pandemic, but just for being able to adjust on the run to some really crazy things. So.
Any other principal challenges, successes you want to share?
Randy's only been in there a couple months
I've
now.
only been there since June 1st, but some successes. I'm pretty sure we sold a car that we just repaired or rebuilt today. Our woodshop productions, they're building the rocking Adirondack chairs like crazy. They're selling a lot of those. And the challenges, I think the biggest challenge is finding people that want to take a chance and work there. It's jail. I mean, so it's scary. And for me, just like I said in my interview, my experience in that kind of environment was getting pulled over for a speeding ticket. So it was a big leap of faith to go there as the principal. And what I found is yes, they're where they are, and yes, they did things to get there, but they're still students. and they still have to graduate. And so my two big things that I've made my priority, and I've made sure that my team knows this is our school priority, and the students know, is good grades and good behavior. So if your grade right now, if you're averaging a 2.0 GPA, well, then there's no reason you can't go for a 2.5. And so I'm really, really, really pushing for higher grades. And I meet with each student at least every other day. I try to meet with them at least once a day so that they see the whites of my eyes and they hear Mrs. Fulton on them. Well, yeah, this is what you did yesterday. Is that something you're proud of? And just calling them out, no different than I would if it was my child. And they've never had anybody that does that. And some of them are gonna be outside with us one day. And so I wanna make them the best citizen that I can. And the best way to do that is to give them a good education. So my biggest challenge is just finding other people that are willing to take that leap of faith that I did. Because I'll be honest, I was nervous. Yeah.
Thanks.
Board goals.
A general thing for you guys to kind of talk about looking at this next year, you know, as a board, are there certain things you guys want to accomplish as a board, as a troop? Obviously, get the strategic plan thing rolling forward here. Things that you guys, you know, wake at night sometimes, wake you up, or things like, hey, we need to address this at school, things that you notice as a board member. Hey, let's take a look at it.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, you know, we're talking about the new facility 5-10 years down the road, but there's still maintenance and stuff that I notice a lot, mostly not in the building, I don't get into it. Outside, I spend a lot of time outside the buildings. A lot of maintenance, we got the tree issue back there, the line sagging off. It's causing a lot of problems on that track. The board got a letter from Mr. Schultz a couple months ago, wanting us to then a watering system. Some of them are dead.
Save them or something, but yeah,
Save
we
them.
actually have, right now, we have, well, we got a bid from the tree service to remove the dead ones. I don't think it's like, don't do that, but they're kind of dying. You know, we talked to Lori Cheek, I think the other day, maybe she would say something like there's a possibility of using the dead trees, pull them out, you know, use them for our fuel when they're dead, but
Well, Lori's got this, she's been working on a grant where it basically creates jobs for people throughout the community, from what I understand. And so he would actually, the contractor that would be willing to do it would actually come in and take them out for free for us, and then she would pay them through the grant. So it would be free to the school to get them all removed, clean up the area, improve the track long term, because that track doesn't need anything else working against it right now. And I think that would be pretty good. That would save us some money. And then, like Mr. Quick said, yes, there's a community member that's not impressed with it, but those dead trees aren't going to improve the health of the live trees. Well,
we did
it
go
could
through
be
a
a
couple-
fire hazard, yeah, as well, which wouldn't do anybody any favors either. So
we did go through a couple years ago and dug a 3-foot trench to the end of the track and put down some, let's say it's a plastic liner to keep the roots from going under, because the roots were going under and leave out there, you can see where they went under, they had to repair the track. So at least from this point forward, you know, unless they go 3 or 4 feet down and then back up, we should.
Yeah, I think at the time when Jim, with a couple of his friends put those trees in, Jim was always a science guy. Probably a good idea at the time when it was a cinder track. But just in a little bit of time I spent out there this Sunday helping football coaching staff with the field line and all that stuff, just walking around there, you just look at the problems that those trees cause. If nothing else, just the maintenance of the weeds and stuff up there, because you can't get around the trees. The fence, I don't know. I got nothing against trees.
yeah, and I mean, alive, they look, you know, it does make it look appealing. It provides some shade, and it's kind of box the wind a little bit, but if you're a track person, you know that that's valuable. But, you know, when they're dead like that and they're littering all over the track,
Yeah, the needles on that track just amazed me.
it doesn't do well.
I also wonder with this, the climate we live in, and like she said, they were planted too close, probably affects on how soon the track's usable last spring on actual snow winter.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting any sunlight to melt the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that just last year when they had that football practice in February, they plowed the snow to one end. And it stayed there. Right, because of the shade. But I think that, you know, the ground person needs to take a look at that, and that needs to be not a priority, it's not a best situation, but it is a situation out there that maintenance will be a lot easier without those trees. You'd be able to attack those weeds that Coach calls goat heads. He's up there every day digging up goat heads.
Yeah, it would just be, but then, you know, we're taking out the trees and then, but then we have to keep on top of the weeds, because the goat heads on the track are not gonna be any more helpful. So it's gonna be definitely kind of a big landscaping.
Yeah.
Kind of beautifying the area.
Just another plan that someone needs to come up with in writing, and it's gonna cost, when it's gonna be done, something like that.
Does the board generally look at your facilities, all three buildings, think, you know, this presentable, they look like you take care of them, or are there some things that you see that, you know, maybe we should pay a little bit more attention to? Because I think we all get used to what they look like, and we try to do things, but, you know, maybe remember to get comments, or what do you think?
Well, I'm excited with the fact that we're gonna have a district office. It's on the main thoroughfare that people can see. You're gonna have a reader board up there, you're gonna have a sign that would be, look professional, than we're storing you guys up in the Lincoln building.
Right.
And the high school looks, front looks real good, they do the best they can. When you kind of go in the back, up around Corbett Field and the back track, softball field just needs some attention. And a lot of it's just annual maintenance.
Well, it's weed control. I mean,
Yep.
you take out the weeds and things, it's a lot different.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to have your kid out there running around in bare feet helping you do something when you don't have somebody, they even have a goat head out the half of this side is Matt's kid.
One thing about up front, I don't know if you mentioned it when I was on, I apologize if I would step out, but the new reader board,
I didn't know.
our new reader board is,
It looks good.
when we get that thing turned on, and it's not just a read words, I mean, this is, we were able to buy this with our high school success money. And they had a training yesterday, I watched the training, but I'm not gonna touch it. I'm afraid, they say you can put, you know, do it from your phone, so I'm probably afraid I'll be texting my son, yelling at him, and I'll end up on the reader board. So I said, Aaron, actually, I'm not touching it, but it's gonna be, I mean, with pictures, I mean, running, it's gonna be,
That's awesome.
it's gonna be a great way for us to communicate where it's gonna grab people's attention, not while they're driving, but, you know, grab their attention. So we're excited about getting that thing turned on. And they painted, Wade and Charlie did a great job. They painted the pole, they put up the sign, so I think it looks a lot more presentable.
As a board, I'd like to see us evaluate the services we receive from different education service districts to make sure from a financial standpoint, we're getting the best bang for our buck, and to also make sure we're meeting the needs of the students. Since we separated from Harney ESD, one of the things in particular, our technology needs, feels like we put a big investment into that. And so I'm willing to bet that if we look at some metrics, we're meeting those needs and at better bang for the buck. But some of the other special, I don't even know the gamut of what they provided, but I know that in the financials, there are always different line items for other ESDs. And if there are services that we could have done within the county to keep jobs in the county, I'd like to explore that. If there aren't, I want to make sure that we're getting the services we need and getting them from the best service districts. So I think that would be tough to break down financially because kind of like I asked about the administrative costs on this SIA deal. When you look at technology, for example, a lot of those costs now aren't just attributed to Harney ESD. They're in a bunch of different line areas, but I'd like to look at the financials to make sure we're providing the best services. And do it before the deadline to procure those services from service districts. It seems like maybe in October or something, you have to tell them that if you want to sign up with them.
Usually the HCSD is it's springtime. They want to know by April the latest because they're budgeting as well, but I think the time to evaluate is probably like you say, the fall, winter, so you get an idea. That's why I went to the assistant technology services that was done by the HCSD. Andy, Megan, they're all kind of like, I think we can do this, ourselves without one person in it. You know, paying for a book, keep this local.
I think it would be good for us as a board to look at that, and I think there are still a lot of questions unanswered to the community, and so if we just do that, the transparency of it, I think would be a show of good faith.
I can put some of that too in my board reports, because a lot of our special education and special programs, we do partner with outside. And so I can kind of highlight each section and like, what does the OT give us that we pay for, and they come here. And that'll give me a good direction for what you'd like to hear from me.
I think I'd like to really emphasize last year and even the previous year, just the concept of retention. And to me, it all starts with teacher retention, administrative retention. So like a more robust, and that to me, I'm big on HR. You will invest all these things into kids and counselors and nurses and everything, but I think employees are where it really makes it happen. And it's really hard to get people to stay here. It's hard to get people to come here, and the more emphasis focused on, developing, supporting all those things that go along with keeping staff happy would be a huge benefit for the district.
And I feel that it's a big, huge for the community. I've always been a believer that our kids need to come back here if they can. There is jobs, there is opportunities, not necessarily all college related opportunities. We have one plumber in town. So I guess my goal is, for lack of a better description, I feel that I'm a PTA mom that decided to be on the school board. So got a lot of learning, got a lot of stuff that I've got to educate myself on. But our kids and making sure, we did lose some kids out to Crane for whatever reasons, but we need to keep our kids here in our school district, keep our parents in our school district. Obviously, the parents that took their kids to Crane, whether it was easy or not easy, but they had concerns. So we need to listen to those concerns, and hopefully fix whatever those concerns were. But I also, focus on preparing our kids for the world. Right now, we touched on it a little bit in the fact that we do have such a hiring and such a employment, and the ones that are willing to work and the ones that are wanting to work are our youth, which in my head is kind of a little bit backwards right now. So can we help those kids that want to work and that want to be out in that workforce, and give them the tools to pick whatever career that is that they want. Everything we talked about today gives them those tools to do that. But the fact that our, my 75% of my crew right now is under 17, and they're the ones that are coming to my door and they want a job, is huge to me, because there for a long time that wasn't the case. So now we have this next workforce coming up, and we need to make sure we're directing them in the right direction to be what they want to be. So, and give them the education and the tools to do that. So I guess one of my goals is educating myself so that I can help.
Not to keep skipping back and forth, and we talk about lots of things if we don't use all this SIA money, but Dan keeps bringing up the HR, and I really think putting that investment in staff should be a priority. I would prioritize that over CTE or restrooms. If we could get someone, and that's what they did, is recruit hardcore and maybe write grants. I just keep lumping that in there too, but because I kind of feel like they might have that skill set if they are an HR person.
I think as an adjunct, I think, staff development gets put on the principals, administration, onboarding staff can be a huge, robust process that takes years. And that's put on, Brenda and each principal. I mean, there's just a ton of things that that could be offloaded to someone like that, and where everything's in a consistent way. I mean, every time you have a personnel issue, anytime it's just that expertise in the organization that makes a big difference when done, when you have the time and energy and, focus on that. So.
Well, I'll gladly give up the board secretary piece and I'll do all HR. That's my favorite part. Yeah.
So, I mean,
We can separate that.
Yeah. I mean, just being an administrative assistant, and it amazes me that there's, all the inner workings that go on, and there's just a few people that do it all, and it seems impressive,
Can I ask a newbie question then, as far as like staff? Is there anything that you guys as a board can do? Because having the young staff that I have, their number one concern is always housing. And that's, if you look at our admin team, I mean, we're all locals, so I'll speak for myself, but we're not going anywhere.
Teacher of some sort, like Crane has.
But yeah, there's something that as the board, you guys can explore, like what are our housing options? What can we do to bolster up, increase housing? Because that's the number one thing for our new staff.
And for retention.
Or just for summer student, again, when we moved here, it was like, I'm not living there. And
Right.
like,
Because when I first moved here, I moved into a duplex, my rent was $200. And then I asked some of the staff now what their rent is, and like, was it like $1,000?
Oh, yeah. Because of the demand.
I paid more here than I did for my farm.
So I don't know,
Most people are paying more for rent than we're paying for our housing.
so I don't know, I mean, if there's something that, maybe.
Are you talking about the district investing in a housing complex?
Maybe that's a possibility, because I was talking to my aunt and uncle, and I know they live up there on Fillmore, up there at the top of the old.
Radar housing?
Yeah, the radar housing, and that's what originally that they said, and I've heard this before, that's what district approaches some of those houses to house teachers.
Yeah. Our superintendent lived up there when I was in school.
Is there something?
Most of the teachers.
That'd be amazing.
Well, that's what I was wondering. This sounds completely out of reach and completely out of reach. But when you guys were saying selling Lincoln, I originally grew up I grew up in the Valley, so I grew up in Eugene, Springfield. And there's tons of old schools over there that they've turned into apartments.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay,
But
stay calm. So but I guess when you guys were talking about housing, and I realized it would be a great undertaking, I have no idea how it would be accomplished by any means, but there's 3 levels and lots of rooms, and I mean, I know it would be a great undertaking, but is that something that we could turn into teacher housing?
Just in the little bit of information that Rob Harney shared with me on it, he had 2 investors interested before we ever made the decision to actually get out of there. And both of their concerns was the age of the building. Now, I know minimum as far as, let me talk about it, as refurbishing it. This particular building is riddled with asbestos.
Okay.
I don't mean that the vacant property that we own couldn't be an apartment complex on. But we're talking.
Don't know if I'd rather stick to educating than solving that problem. And it's just a huge thing, property management, construction and everything. It's just-
Well,
Well,
you come up with
and
an
the-
agreement with the company that does it.
Like Blackburn, they're a
Right.
only rental company, management company.
Well, and kind of circling back almost a little bit to Rob and Dan's deal about HR/grant writer. If you had that position, then they could possibly, there might be grants for such thing. Because there's a lot of rural schools like Crane and other places that have housing so that they can hire staff. And so if you had that position, that'd be something for that person that they'd be able to look into is funding options for such an idea.
I don't think HR and a grant writer go together. That's just my personal opinion. I think that is totally two separate things. What'd you say?
Grant writing is pretty technical.
Very technical.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Just had to put that out.
It is, housing is an issue, not only for school district employees, for everybody. It all comes down to having somebody with the confidence and the desire to invest in this community and build. I looked at building an eight unit apartment complex on the property I own downtown. Even if you would have to rent them at $1,500 a month for 2 bedrooms. And at that time, I thought that was, not even think I've probably gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's prohibited right now to build a.
Now you could buy that eight unit, that eightplex, it's right behind my property there at 609. Colby's got a list for now, for 500, it's 8 1 and 2 bedroom units. But several people are looking at it as an investment because all 8 of them are rented.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help unless you bought it and you say, now, this is, you gotta be a school district employee to live here. Boy, do we wanna get into that mess.
I don't think we want to get into that mess. And
Unless school district employees, and you can't rent them and they're empty, you can't pay for them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I say with real estate.
Yeah.
I have no idea about it.
But it is an issue, and probably one that we should be vocal with our county government about, because I feel that as long as a lot of the housing is taken up through subsidized programs, there's a shortage for working families.
Of all the 5 or 6, I think there's 5 apartment complexes in town now, there's only one that's not subsidized. I moved back here, just the one down on the end of A Street that I could move into.
When I first moved here, I tried to side, or right here.
Saying on this.
Yeah, saying on this says, right there, well, what's your job? It says, I'm gonna be a brand new teacher making 29, that's too much.
Yeah.
What? For sagging on it.
Because they were all subsidized to be built by the federal government.
We have that too. It's
And
we
that's-
have all the apartments.
We have lots of subsidized housing.
I talked to Pete about that too, and that's the one thing he said, and this was a while back, but that's one thing he said as far as grants go. There's nothing available for private
Developers, it's all,
no grants available.
Well, the county is looking at that deal right now about, or I didn't read all the way up on it, but basically, they're gonna give lots to have housing built. But I don't know how quick that's gonna take place.
You know, you mentioned the acreage up behind Slater. That's our.
But yeah, I'm
property.
not necessarily-
If they have a developer and say, if you build these houses, they will come. And they say, well, you know, we'll contribute to property as long as employees are to get first. That'd be a possibility. The property we have up in Slater is working with the developer and say, look, we can give you this land. You're gonna build 10, 12 houses, but we gotta have some assurance that our people get good track of it.
And I
then you
think
get
that-
people in long leases, which any good business person's going
Yeah,
to do.
yeah.
And now they're all rent, I mean, look how many people are looking for a house. My only fear with something like that is if people other than district employees, again, you want it for 4 years, because where else are you really gonna move?
Yeah, it couldn't be a month to month.
That could be a deterrent to keep new teachers here. You have to stay here for 3 years at least.
Yeah, how big is that?
I like it.
I could send you the, and go on.
Oh, I can get it on.
You go on GIS and you can see there are individual blocks that are several acres each. It's I wanna say 200 acres, it's a lot.
I don't know what as a board we can do, if anything, but I do realize it's one of the biggest hurdles that we have and most of the employers in the county have.
The other thing is daycare. I almost lost a teacher last year because she didn't have daycare, and then 2 people this year that are questionably still looking. So.
But
that-
you're
that be
talking
worth-
about the toddler, some of the kids that
Under
aren't under.
kindergarten.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that would almost be worth, I mean, that would be like a perfect grant model, where you could write something out, and we don't have that resource right now, but it almost would be worth looking in to see the cost of that, because that's a, you know, a huge benefit to offer the district with that many parents.
There's so many school districts. I know Gresham Barlow, Barlow High School, and then South Albany High School. They have the daycare program through their high school, and it's a class. It'd be awesome. And you can sign up. I mean, they can be there all day, and it's always, they have staff there, but the students come in as a class too. It's just a bit.
Lake Community College had that as far as their child education.
Partner in Nampa, there was a lady and she said, I only work teacher work days and she only took teacher district kids. She wouldn't take admin kids because their schedules were different. And so we all got appointed to her, but she charged a pretty penny, but it was a great, you know, we supported her and she supported us by taking the kids on, you know. But I mean, I think here there's not we don't have 15 daycare providers, so that there is nowhere to send them.
Some other nitty gritty goals, I think whatever the board decides for their goals will probably have a great bearing on what we use for our superintendent evaluation criteria. Something that we've talked about is keeping all the students in our district, retaining teachers, which I think median teacher age is kind of telling of that, which we'll talk about that in a minute. All of our seniors meet diploma requirements, 100% of our students meeting, you know, grade level standards, but that's not realistic. And so that's why I'd be curious to talk about these goals with this group as a whole. What are realistic expectations? Like, it'd be great if we had 100% of the kids in school district 3 went to school here. That's not realistic. What is realistic for a goal, and what's realistic for stepping stones to get there? Because I don't know what those numbers would look like.
And the simple answer is just improvement in those areas, you know, our goals. So if you know, whatever it is, if you're talking about retention, or if you're talking about grade level, you know, percentages of who meets, and try to work on that for the next year as a moving goal. You know, try to focus all your objectives to meet that goal. I don't know. Where are we at right now, I guess, on our,
We need to know our baselines, where we're at.
Is there a way to, do we have a number that of student enrollment, kids who live in district that are enrolled in this district? Like a percentage?
Percent, we could probably calculate, we could probably see, because the charter schools, they will send us a monthly report of how many kids are enrolled, whether it's Sylvie's, Oregon, Connexus, whoever it is, they have to send us a monthly report to say, put students there, sir. So I know charter schools. Crane, I don't, once they roll out there, whether they stay out there, move, or what, I don't know, once they're out there, they don't have any obligation to send us.
I think the hard part right now is, I mean, I hope this doesn't come to pass, but everything I've read with, one of the reports we're getting at the hospital is like the new variant is affecting kids a lot worse. And so, you know, knock on wood, when we talk about COVID, that things aren't going to go back to the way they were. There's some big hospital organizations like down south right now where it's getting hit really hard, where 20% of their inpatient COVID patients are pediatrics. You know, so this variant's different than the other one. That's why we're seeing the response we are from the governor, which, you know, I can't stand and everything, but it's a reality. And so we get hit harder in this community than, let's say, Crane or Sylvie's when those things go up, because people start looking at alternatives. And, you know, so for one, it'd be nice to really kind of plan for that and make sure that we're doing everything we can to avoid a mass exodus again if we go back in, you know, this winter. I mean, the worst months last year were in the winter. They were January, December, And here we are in the middle of summer, at the end of summer, and we're already seeing a spike in the community. And that's reality. So I think some focus and energy on just what to do when that arises, and what we can do to make our district as good as we can to make sure that people want to stay, getting creative with alternatives and things like that. So I hope I'm wrong.
Me too.
Oh, I mean, we're able to keep our doors open. I think we will be able to do that, keep our doors open. There's no talk of hybrid models or anything like that coming out yet, but we do have this year doing the online program K-8 starting this year. I think that's going to be super positive. She's a super strong teacher, very innovative, very organized. I think having her run that is going to draw some kids into that program that have looked to charter schools in the past. The biggest thing right now, the kids that they don't want to come to school, they want to go to charter, I'm getting in the last couple of weeks have been like, if we have to be masked, we're just gonna go to charter schools, right? And so they're wanting to go to these other charter schools because they're known quantities. Some of them just aren't willing to say, hey, I want to try out, this new program you have, because it's not tried true, right? So I've got a couple parents that are saying, hey, I will give it a shot because they know Liz will need to do it. So that's one strategy. And so we really have K-12 options right now. If somebody wants to do online, we have that ability right now. Our teachers are trained right now. We can use our current curriculum, Google Classroom. If we have to go to a CDL model, we can go. So we have some things in mind. But I think we've proven this last year that we can stay in school, we can stay functioning, which is huge. I don't know if you get any, I don't know what else we can do on that one.
No, part of the struggle is you can't control what the other school districts say. When we ran into this issue, they released a statement saying, by God, we're not going to mask our kids no matter what. Well, we know that's not true. They can't do that. I mean, with what we've heard is punishments and stuff, we can't ask people to risk their livelihoods to let our kids keep the masks up. Unfortunately, totally, I'm same as you. I don't want to mask the kids, but we can't ask people to risk their livelihood. We already have a hard time with staff retention.
We delve too much into that. Does anyone have any other input on goals? I would like to see our performance improve, our retention improve, student retention and teacher retention improve. Those three things. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see?
I guess is it something you want to formalize by putting together some numbers? Because when you say you want to increase retention of staff, are you talking staff or students or both?
One goal for each. And if we can decide right now, we want those to be our board goals as a board, that's what we want for the district, then we could ask to get some data on those. So we have some baselines and then kind of decide, what's a good, we do 2% increase, is that pretty good? Or any increase?
I can just tell you like the last 2 years with staff anyway, we're probably at 5%. I mean, we're doing really well.
I have a calculator and this year.
And so
we are
like to
5%.
increase to 2%, it's like probably not even realistic. To say we're not gonna hire 4 people in a school year, like that's probably pretty normal for a district their size to have.
I'd almost like to see recommendations, like if you guys analyze the numbers and see what's realistic, kind of go from there. Because it would be hard. I mean, last year with COVID and everything, there probably wasn't a lot of turnover staff-wise, which is awesome. And so there's just those variables every year. But to me, the main thing is like identify what we think will work and implement those programs to, even if we, have a bunch of anomalies and, all your new teachers decide they got jobs where their hometown is and they leave, that's somewhat out of our control. But if we make the district just, if we focus on that, making their experience as good as we possibly can, that'll help.
Student retention right now is difficult. It's just difficult across the United States. I mean, and Mr. Quick hit on the head. If charter schools are an option for people, instead of wearing masks, are going CDL and they want to go to a school that's been doing online school for 10 years, you know, because they're proven or whatever, then you gotta understand that. You know, if we weren't in the time we were at and we were seeing the retention issue, but right now, if you, a great example, a friend of mine's at a school, they have 2,300 kids, I don't know the exact number, but they're about that. Last year, they were one of the only districts in the state that got rid of the 3%. They said, we're just gonna let you, lost 400 kids, almost 400 kids is what they lost. They didn't expect that, because they're a good school district, they have good performance, but when it came down to it and they started to ask people, they said, these programs they're just, well, we know about them. They've been doing online forever. We need that situation. And so now, are they gonna get those people back? I don't know. So by doing that, having the program we have, we connect, it's the Apex we do, you know, we want people to give us a chance for that stuff, you know, and so I think this year, and Rob, I don't disagree with you or Dan, or any of you guys. I mean, I've been in education for a couple of years, and I understand that we want retention in all those areas. I mean, I'm working with the same administrators for the last few years. This is fantastic, you know, and our teaching staff in high school, I mean, two is the biggest amount we've had. So that's been great, but the challenges we had, I don't know what else, and that doesn't mean we're going to stop looking here at the high school. I don't know what else we can do in the years that we've had last year and this year with the COVID unknown, like today. I mean, today just talked about, you know, the governor just talked about masking up indoors on, you know, this week. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But with these unknown and the things that are hitting us, trying to figure out ways to continue to make that educational experience. I mean, the kids are in the building, we're gonna, I mean, I tell you, the greatest part of mine and Miss Tully's day, it seems like we've talked about this, is the morning when the kids come in and we give them hand sanitizer. Because this situation has forced us to say good morning to every kid when they walk in the door. Every kid walks in the door, sees the principal and the vice principal at the front door. We say hello. And that's been cool. I mean, we talk about how cool that's been. But again, those such settings and situations with what we're going on right now, I think it's a fantastic goal. And I love it as a goal. I think we need to leave it as a goal. But I mean, I think we need, and I know you guys all understand that we're gonna have some serious challenges in that goal. If things continue to go downhill, like, I mean, you're smarter than I am, Dan. You're telling me about the medical stuff, but I don't know. That does not sound promising.
No.
That does not sound promising. So, and for us in education, so it's going to be tough. It's still we're not out of this by any means.
I think just recognizing that, well, even if no more COVID, I mean, people got a taste of the alternative, and we have to be, you know, we can offer that alternative in the district, it sounds like. And so I think doing it well and making it so, you know, so that parents have no reason to leave here if things change, I think is something that is worthwhile looking into. And really that whole model of, you know, kind of a charter school within a district, you know, all these alternative type things are how we'll keep some of those kids in the district, and we can grow that. I mean, everybody knows that in person for most kids is what, well, maybe we don't know that, but I think it was great, you know. And so for the kids that also think that's great, let's own that. And for the other kids that got a taste of going somewhere else, let's win them back and blow them away with how good it can be.
Well, I think that's where, like, my son was home and he did the distance program, and then he stayed home. He was one of the few that had never done better. And it kind of shifted my lens a little bit. What to offer an a la carte education. You know, and that's one of the things Mrs. Gearworth and her program is really striving to do is, oh, you want to come in one day a week for tutoring? Absolutely. You don't want to come in at all? Absolutely. You want to come in and do field trips with us? Absolutely. You want to have a family forum to connect with other parents who are in the same boat and you guys want to schedule a play date at the park? Absolutely. And so we're really trying to marry all the pieces and provide this. What does your child need? So we have this phenomenal online program that I'm super excited about. But we also have books, things that they can touch. So, you know, you want to be 100% on the computer, we can do that. You want some time on the computer and some time in a workbook, we can do that too. And really trying to find the things that we learned worked, take out the things that we learned didn't work. And hear what the parents are saying. Again, for some of them, it's 100% about the mask. For some of them, it worked for their child did well. And again, and trying to bring in, we ordered social emotional curriculum for Liz to use with the students as well. So they're getting all of these parts and pieces. And so I'm hoping that it will pick up some speed, but it's not proven yet. We have really high hopes, and I think it's gonna be phenomenal. But we just gotta prove ourselves now, and I think that as parents here, again, we're small enough community that hopefully, and it is different than what Sylvia has to offer, not because we're in a competition with them by any stretch of the imagination, but we're trying to create a unique program for the students who need something maybe a little different, whether that's because of the mandates or because of how they learn.
Something that kind of concerns me is we get focused on the last 2 years on the whole student retention thing. And we actually had some issues before COVID with student retention. And so now we're like, it was because of this, so people aren't bringing their kids because of the mask. And it was actually pre-COVID issues already with student retention. And I just get concerned that sometimes we just forget, we just blame it on the last 2 years and we forget that we did have student retention issues before COVID. I mean, there was some, we all know, we all live here, we're all local. There was a bunch of kids that left before it ever started.
I think we did, but I think with this new online program and having a true online platform for our district with the teacher involved is gonna kind of help with that, because yeah, we did have that before. But I think COVID in a positive way also showed that we had it, but it was because the kids felt like they didn't have another option. But now I think they kind of are saying, well, maybe we do have another option, so maybe I'm not gonna go here, but I am gonna go online because I'm successful here. So maybe there's a positive to that and getting some of that retention back, because I think a lot of it is there are some kids that are overly successful online that didn't realize it prior. And so maybe prior to that, we didn't have those options necessarily. So now that we do, we might actually get a positive coming back with that retention that we had issues with before this COVID.
And it's been, I know Mrs. Gear's been getting questions as to around the community, as have I, what is it? What's it look like? Tell me more. And so it's been fun to get to share, and it's been fun to hear too, like, oh, well, what about this? Oh, well, gee, we didn't think about that. And one of the things that we really tried to show on was that parent lens also, this was hard on parents. This was, whether your kid thrives or not, having your children, bless their dear heart, in your house with you 24/7. I say that as a mother. It's hard. And so how can we provide options to support those parents? And, I was talking to another parent whose students don't go here. And, the biggest fear was, I'm not prepared to help them this year. They have exceeded me academically. And okay, so we have kids who are thriving at home, parents are doing well, but they need that academic support. So how do we build that in so that their student, mom and dad don't feel overwhelmed, or mom and dad don't feel incapable to teach the content in the rigor that it needs to be taught in?
I think we talked about, Joe, is I think we gotta make our district attractive enough, so maybe some of the kids that have gone out to training want to come back. So after school activities, it's what are we doing during the school day that we're getting good press about, and that parents like. I think those things will be attractive enough. I know they were going to Green before I got here, we sent a bus in town, it's just increased over the last 2 years, for sure. How do we reverse that, we get some of those kids back, and make it worth it for them to stay here rather than getting on a bus and spending an hour to an hour and a half a day sitting on a bus. That's weird to me.
Do you guys feel like these alternative programs are developed enough and robust enough that that maybe some awareness out in the community that some advertising that, hey, we offer this, it's great, would be worth doing?
We have in the paper this week for the online program.
And we'll send an email out to all our parents there, to talk about the program that we did last year. So I think that's a great point to get that out there and kind of get some circulation going about it. I think the retentions, and again, if you've gotten to know me, I'm a positive person just by nature. I'm an optimist. I think that retention is going to go up across the board simply because, like I said, I think more teachers are staying. We haven't seen. I think it's with Son and Steph and myself and Aaron and Randy. I think we have administrators that want to stay. You know, I know we all do. I mean, this is, and when you have that, the thing to look at is it's not, none of us that have gotten to know all of the administrators in our district, none of us are dictators. Because dictatorship does not work in administration. It just does not work in a school setting. All of us sit down and talk to our staffs. All of us learn from our staffs. All of us get better every day from what our staffs teach us. When you do that, then your staff wants to stick around. When your staff wants to stick around, you start to build some continuity within a school, within the doors and within the walls, and you have students that want to stick around and people want to stick around. And I think that, and again, I haven't been here forever, so I don't want to talk about before 4 years ago, because I wouldn't disrespect people by doing that. I just know that going forward, I think those things are huge in the education world. I think when students know who their teachers are going to be, who their principal and vice principal and athletic director and student secretary, all those people, I think they know who they're going to be, and they've gotten to know them because they're out in the community, which we're all out in the community. Our teachers are out in the community. I think it's going to go up. I think it's going to be a positive thing.
Well, I think building programs, even like summer school, we've had kids who don't go here try to sign up for summer school, which, I mean, I hate the idea that we turn kids away, but this is a program for Harney County students. We have open arms, please, we would love to have your student back. It was kind of an interesting, but it made me like, if we put on I'm totally hooked on NASA camp, now we gotta figure that out. On a NASA camp are these really neat opportunities that this is what we have to offer our kids, like we wanna offer them the world. Taste the rainbow. I think kids will come back too, of the ones who, again, I don't know Crane schools well enough to speak about them. I don't know Sylvie's well enough to speak about them, but what we have to offer is youth. I think that's important.
You got board members, Gary, you got a superintendent's been here more years than most superintendents stick around, so he obviously cares. So I mean, I think it trickles down. I think our students are going to stick around. I think it's going to get better. And again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm being over optimistic, but that's how I work.
I live under the same, with the same unicorn.
Thank you.
Nothing bad.
Median teacher experience is a better indicator of teaching strength rather than retention or
What's that?
percentage turnover. Median teacher experience. A lot of websites, when you look at how they rate schools, it's based on how long the teachers have been there. Or it'll say, you know, the median teaching experience.
That's a
15
great,
years.
I like that better than, because, you know, each school year is a little bit unique, and you have the young ones that may not be a good fit, doesn't count that. I like that as a better metric.
And then for the retention, I believe strongly in free choice and freedom of education, and I'm adamantly opposed to our policy that allows us to deny transfers. If we were to not deny any transfers, worst case scenario, how many students would we lose, and what would that do to us from a business standpoint? And the only reason I ask is because I am adamantly opposed to it. If we're going to talk about a student retention metric and we're going to consider allowing free choice, then that needs to be taken into account. If realistically we could lose 20% of our students, then that shouldn't be a ding on our performance or the superintendent's performance if that was expected. We expected that.
Yeah, I think there'd have to be an exception if board wanted to go that direction. You just would have to factor that in the metric.
Does anyone else have strong feelings about that? Because if you do, you probably should talk about that for too much longer.
No, I agree. I mean, you gotta determine if your policy is completely freedom of choice, then it's gonna change your metrics. It's not gonna change the numbers. Especially from the get-go, if you decide, you know, we're not gonna say no to anybody anymore, then that's gonna change things at the beginning.
Why do you, I mean this so not disrespectfully, I'm not trying to be rude, but you are pushing since you've been on the board for student retention, but your student doesn't go to our district. How can you push that as a board chair now when your child doesn't go to our district?
So I had to make the choice that was right for my student.
So
based
is
on my
that, how,
personal
what's the
reasons.
metric then? What's the point?
At the time when I transferred my student, I would describe the administrative state of that elementary school as chaotic. I wasn't happy with some of the demographics of the school, and I felt like Crane would be a better fit.
Do you
And
still
now
like
it will
that?
be hard because I see great things going on in our schools. And that teacher appreciation week, when I was able to meet most of the teachers, and that's the thing. I'm convinced we have a lot of great teachers and we have students. The students are kind of a control. I like to think Harney counties are a little better, but students are students. So we've got a lot of great teachers. We've got students and the cogs aren't fitting and we need to do something so that our performance reflects what we have in this county. That's the problem is now, in my case, I've transferred my student. Even if things get great and I decide to bring him back because it's a better educational experience and it would be more convenient, now he's already established as a student out there with an established friend base. And that's not just my student. That's the people who whole families moved out there. To get them to come back is going to be just nigh on impossible. The high school switch will be the best time we have to get them back. And so a lot of this planning that we do, if we're going to talk about actually drawing those students back, it will probably be anywhere from 5 to 10 years before we see, we won't get those families back. All we can do is not lose anymore, not lose any of the families coming up. I feel that very strong. Or we can talk about how do we recruit these kids when they're going from 8th grade to freshman year? How do we get them back in this school district? Because think about it as a parent, and I do push for retention and I push for freedom of choice. If I was a parent and wanted to transfer my student because I felt it was best for them and was told that I couldn't and was denied, I would be livid. Man, think about that as a parent. I would be absolutely livid. Would you not be?
I to speak freely.
Yes.
I find it very. I find it very duplicitous.
I'll have to define
What is
it.
that?
That's what I mean by that. What I mean by duplicitous, what I mean. I see that there's a conflict of interest. If you're asking me my opinion, okay, so here's what are we being recorded?
Yeah. The webinar is.
Okay. What I find, be careful, I guess, be careful when you ask me my opinion. And so I find it very, I find there's a conflict of interest there when someone says that they're for proponent of freedom of choice for schools. But yet they sit on a school board, Harney County School District number 3. I find conflict that what do you represent then? Do you represent what's best for our district, for our students and our staff? Or are you advocating for freedom of choice and my kids can go to whatever school they want to and what that fits them? I was once told that I was the type of person that I had a homeschool mentality. It just so happened that I was a public school teacher. I guess so I don't know how you're balancing those two. To me, there seems to be a disconnect. So I don't know. So if you ask me my opinion, am I for freedom of choice? Yes. I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my children, but I'm also going to take their interests and their opinions to heart as well. I can't say that this past year with COVID and beforehand, I haven't thought about alternative options that I'm lying if I said I didn't. But I think as a school board member, you have to really decide where your loyalties lie. And that's just, you're asking me my opinion, that's where your loyalties lie, freedom of choice or with what's best for our school district. I would like to see us as a school district and you guys as a school board to give Mr. Quick so that he can give all of us administrators a clear path and a clear vision as to what we want. If, we have alternative options now, we're a public school entity, but if you want to either host another charter school, or if you want to build the Apex program, the Connections program, what we need from the school district is a clear vision of where you want us to go as a school system.
I appreciate your candor.
That's what
I'd be able to find the saddles, but I ride someone else's. I guess you have to take it on trust. The decisions and the actions I take are in the best interest of the district. That's all I can say to that.
I just want to express that I'm 100% freedom of choice to be able to, you know, as a parent, to choose exactly what I think is best for my kid. But as a school board member, you know, what's best? You know, having an exodus of 400 kids from your school, what that would do to funding, what that would do to teaching, what that could do to administration, what that would do to the entire district. And we're in a weird, you know, we've never seen this kind of thing in my life where we're in turmoil with COVID and all the stuff that's going on. And we're, you know, it's kind of a battle to keep every student here. And so, you know, it's not that simple. It's not just, hey, freedom of choice trumps everything. When we're a school board member trying to make this district the absolute best it could be, you can't have it both ways. So.
Can I ask a question? Because I've been in another state and I took my daughters went to private school in Nevada, and then they went to charter school, and then they went to public school. This was before we came here to Burns. So when you talk about metrics for deciding retention and things like that, and you talked about the websites, which ones do you use? Because I know which ones I went to, and I know which ones are out there. So I'm curious where you are gonna be basing your information from.
I wouldn't base it off that. I just meant if that's what we want to choose as a metric, like the medians, that's information that we can calculate in-house.
Right.
I just didn't know if that was an accurate, that's why I asked if that's an accurate metric to use for the strength of your teaching, your teachers. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I think one of the questions, and I've heard Rob, Mr. Frank, Mr. Fulton, and Mr. Wynn, obviously been in the school board for a couple years now. And I've heard all three of you talk about how great you think our teachers are. And I believe you believe that. I mean, I believe that. I said our high school staff is that, but all staffs in all three schools are fantastic. I've gotten to know tons of teachers at Slater, tons of teachers at middle school.
Or school.
We have, and I know teachers at Monroe. We have great teachers in this district. So from a board standpoint, and again, you guys are all incredibly supportive. And I know Mr. Wright and Mr. Reed are first on the board, but I've got to know you guys. I know that you're supportive too. If we believe as a board, we believe as administrative staff, the teaching staff, that we have great schools and great teachers, then, you know, and again, I'm not for forcing people to do something, but you live in our school district. And I know there's always exceptions to the rule based on mental and social well-being and health, not because Billy's friend goes to another school. Because if a parent sending somebody to another school because their friend's there, you know, part of growing up is meeting new friends, you know, and the part of, well, I really like this teacher out there. Well, you know what? Your kid's a second grader, and all our second grade teachers are awesome. You know, so I get it, because again, I'm a choices, part of the American concept. I get that piece. I do. I really do. But I think believing in something, which I believe all of you believe in our school district, I honestly do. That's the thing that worries me a little bit, is that you start to get people, and I had to talk to my friend, like I brought up my friend. I talked to him and he goes, hey, you know, 90% of these people didn't leave for any particular reason except they didn't want to be unmasked, or they wanted it online. It was just something that didn't fit why they're school. He said, if we would have said no, you know, maybe 15 of these people would have complained. The other one said, okay, you know, because you have good teachers, you have good settings. So that's the only thing that worries me and keeps me up at night when we have this discussion is, what reasons are people leaving? And are they legitimate academic student reasons? I hear your reason for your child. I wouldn't question that, Mr. Frank. I believe that you felt that way. And I respect that. I don't think that's across the board in all families and all people. I think sometimes they make decisions based on things that aren't academically best, you know, or they maybe get miscued for that. But I really believe everybody in this room believes in our district and believes that we have great teachers and great education. So by just opening the door, I'm a little bit concerned about that. But I do know that if you get to your 3%, we have those situations that are, I think we look at them, you know, piece by piece. But, you know, obviously we'll come to work and support whatever we need to do. But that's the only part that worries me a little bit, is because how big can they get? And again, then you're going to we talk teacher retention. If we did lose enough people to where Mr. Quick had to call up and say, hey, Miss Lardy, you got to let your brand new second grade teacher go on that's just a fantastic teacher, but they're low on the totem pole. because of this reason. That's a tough conversation to have. And based on what? We don't know. So that's my only concern.
There are always gonna be people that just, they have how they feel, and that's just the way they feel, and it's just gonna be the way it is.
I'll just say, Rob, I struggle with saying no to people, because I'm with people, you know, it's America, right? Everyone should be able to have a choice. I understand what you're saying on that. It's uncomfortable for me to tell a parent, no, really? You kind of want that reason of why, what's a legitimate reason, but even if I don't think it's legit to that parent, it's legit. And it's a nasty conversation. We don't win as a school district when I say no. So I understand what you're saying, like, let's allow it, right? I understand the why behind it, because if I say yes, we lose the student. If I say no, I kind of lose that relationship with the parent anyway. So it's kind of lose-lose. I think we need to just continue to focus on building our programs, adding programs, and making them attractive enough where we get those people that want to stay in our community. I think there's a certain group of kids, they are going to always relate to the ranchers out of Crane, to a small school district. They want to send their kids, they maybe even live out that way. I don't think you're going to attract them to our district. We don't have, 200 school district population where we can give that environment that they're looking for. That's not something we can compete with. What we can compete with is offering high quality programs, multiple CTE offerings, sporting activities that perhaps they can't at a small district. But I think we got to build our school up to the point where it's an attractive option. I think we can do that. We have great teachers and programs and a community. There's no reason we can't continue to build on what we've got in place right now.
I would actually say a good reason why I'm here is because Steve said yes to my kids, and I found out the alternative was terrible. Terrible. I don't know everybody else's opinions, but my kids can't do online school. But then they also struggled the year before, not so much last year, but the teachers here weren't prepared for online school. And so it wasn't fair to them. And so we thought we needed to change to go to experience online school. Didn't make a difference. Some kids aren't learning online. Like one of mine is CTE, that's the only reason he comes to school. I mean, the rest of it don't matter. You can't do the CTE online. And so that's why me and Rob, I think, also ask a lot of questions about CTE, because there's kids out there like that they're going to take the bare minimums academically. And so if the other stuff is there to make them want to be here, even if it's a kid that might have left the Crane, they find out they come here and take construction or graduate welding certified, they might come back just because of that.
And I tried this whole, honestly, this whole CDL thing way before COVID hit. I think right when Steve got here, talking about my YouTube channel, I recorded about math videos on my own time, put them on Facebook and thought, oh, this is the cool thing. You put classrooms, where the kids watch a video and they come to class, school with questions. The kids, unless the kid was an athlete or they were homesick, they hated watching my videos and doing their math on their own. And I asked them, I says, why do you not like it? Because we want you to teach us. You're here. We want you. You're in the classroom. They want that interaction. As an adult, I love doing stuff online, learning the skill and going off and applying it. But it's a maturity thing too. The kids want you in the classroom, so we can offer these programs for some of these kids. From talking to them, they love this, being online. Some of them, a lot of them, more so than not so much, because they want that human interaction. So I've tried it. It is not ideal for everybody.
Hopefully, as our again, and I say this as an admin, as we all stick around, like I want parents to say, like, hey, I want this in your school, or gee, poor Mr. Burns, now he has my child, thankfully, this is already messed out. Like, I want my son to have this is the trajectory for my son, so get on board. Like, I want parents to say that to us. And again, we can't get the moon, but we can try. We can get pretty darn close to the moon. And in some of our programs, we can get the moon. I think as we all stick around and are in the community, like, I want to know, what do the parents of our hospital employees want for their children? What do our teacher parents want for their children? What do our cigar workers and our farmers and our ranchers want for theirs? And let's build that school. Again, yes, we have to teach all these other pieces, which are super important, but I want to build a school that is what our community wants and needs. And again, this poor admin team, I wear my mom hat probably more than I wear my admin hat, because we fell in love with the community and we want to be here. But my son is going to have a 2-year degree by the time he graduates high school. That's not optional in my household, because I lived it and I always have a leg up from it. And y'all can laugh at me if that doesn't happen, but he won't be with us at that point. So again, I want to hear, what do our families want? What do our kids want? And again, if they want to come back and say what we're doing, it's okay. I see how it is. But again, my passion as a mother is alive and well. And I want that from our other families to come in and say, hey, this is the trajectory for my child. And like within our strategic plan and these programs, and what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Well, let's make sure you're set up to do that. Again, my cousin works for NASA, and my son is super excited to go and visit him when COVID's over and see all the the rovers and the things that go in space travel. And what if we have a group of kids interested in that? Or, gee, I want to study marine biology when I grow up, or be a zoologist as the second grader. Well, let's work with some of our partners around our state and give you a taste. And for me, that's the vision. And my fear with free choice is they're going to say, you don't have it, they have it. Well, give us a chance to have it. Tell us what you want. And I know that Mr. Quick does a great job listening to the parent, and we have had some kids that, I remember we had a student within my first year, she went to some like Mandarin charter school, and then she moved to Burns, Oregon. And again, the classes on her transcript were, we didn't have an online program like we didn't have and so she takes every student into consideration, and I don't ever want to get rid of that, because I think that every student is an individual learner. But what if our focus as a district was, well, tell us what you want, give us a chance. And if we can't do it, okay, but what if we can? I don't know, that's.
Rob, you think that's 2 minutes till the webinar starts, so you might want to take this discussion and maybe move to the end of our next meeting.
Are there any goals besides improved student performance, teacher, maybe median experience, and talk about student retention, at least in numbers? We can have goals, and maybe at the next.
I think I think that's comprehensive. I think those cover everything. There's, I don't think we need to change anything with those from my perspective.
When we look at numbers, the next one, and we're buying single. Yeah.
I think another goal would be nice, and I want to really thank Mr. Quick and Brendan for putting this on. The setting needs to happen more often. In my own opinion, these are conversations we don't always get to have board meetings. Obviously, we're in the audience, we get presentations, and that's great. We love doing that. But I think doing this at least twice a year. I think doing it at the halfway point would be great to get together and have these kind of communications. These are they're just useful.
I'd almost love to do it at the teacher level as well. I mean, I know we've tried to set things up, but it's just so they have a voice and we can listen and, put in more of an informal. I think those are the best, more productive. You can understand where each other are coming from.
Well, it'd be great. It'd be an idea, Dan, to piggyback on that, is find out when each one of the schools has their staff meeting. And here in the first 2 months or something, if we could get, I know it's tough. We get all 5 of you or 4 of you, whatever, to come to our staff meeting. We just set a staff meeting aside for, hey, board's coming, questions and answers. Let's just get it going. I mean, I think it might be a good, because our staff meetings are typically on different nights, so.
And it was nice when both you guys came in, and used to back in the day, board members used to come into school all the time. And so please, anytime you guys want to come in to Slater.
Absolutely.
I just shoot the staff a message so they know, and anytime.
Would the administrators maybe talk to your staff and let us know, like in those first 2 months, if there is a time when one or all, we can public notice if we know in advance that we're all going to go into it. But I think a roundtable discussion would be great. And with this admin team, what if we said an hour work session before the November meeting and an hour work session before the March meeting or something?
I would put those on the books.
Just something like this.
Something just like that.
This team.
Will there be dinner?
Come on.
Potluck?
Right.
More for us.
Okay, if those are the goals, and everyone's fine with that, we can't adjourn until after the
Yeah.
webinar. We're gonna leave that on, right?
Right.
Just leave the meeting going.
You know.